6:59 right now. We'll just another 20 seconds maybe. Gina, wait till Gina's back. Thank you. Welcome to the welcome to the February 24th, 2020.
Recording in progress.
Welcome to the February 27th, 2024 Millbrae City Council meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. Ms. City Clerk, would you please do a roll call?
Councilmember Snyder.
Present.
Councilmember Pappen. Councilmember Cahalan.
Here.
Vice Mayor Goodman.
Here.
Mayor Fung.
Here.
All members of City Council are present.
Thank you. For those who are able, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. And Mr. Vice Mayor, would you like to highlight our land acknowledgement?
Yes. The Millbrae City Council acknowledges that we occupy the unceded ancestral, traditional, and contemporary homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone people, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. We wish to pay our respects to the ancestors and relatives of the Ramaytush community and to affirm their sovereign rights as First Peoples. We recognize that the Ramaytush Ohlone have lived in harmony with nature for millennia, and that to achieve a truly ecological, sustainable future for Millbrae, we must embrace indigenous, traditional, ecological knowledge in how we care for the city's lands, waters, and all of its people. We will continue to uplift and foster a meaningful relationship with the Ramaytush Ohlone community, and we will encourage all to visit www.ramaytush.org to learn more about the Ramaytush Ohlone people.
Thank you. And next up is ceremonial presentation, and we start with the first item, proclamation, proclaiming March 8th, 2024 as International Women's Day. I just wanted to say that we're thankful for nearly half of our world's population every day, not only for their kindness, their care, attention to details, and their unwavering strength and leadership, but most importantly, their dedication to all of our communities. So today we join here today to honor the dedicated women who contributed greatly to our society every day, as we continue to look forward to greater gender equality, where women no longer makes only 82 cents for every dollar that a man makes. So I also wanted to take this opportunity to thank a little bit my mother, who gave birth to me, and my daughter, who showed me what life means beyond yourself. And also, most importantly, my dear wife, who gave me my beautiful family and support me in everything that I do every day. So today, we're blessed with our city staff member. We have our Assistant City Manager and Human Resource Director, Isabel Carlos. We have City Clerk Elaine Tran and Interim Management Assistant Nicole Huang, who shall receive this proclamation on behalf of all the women who make our city great every day. But before you guys goes up and took a photo, if anyone else want to say a few words, I would be more than happy to yield the mic. Councilwoman Pappen, you'd like to? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, thank you to all the women out there who, if we had the Barbie movie, we'd put that quote on. But that's the struggle each and every day, and what we deal with, but for all the right reasons. And it's an honor to be here. Thank you very much, and look forward to celebrating International Women's Day with the ladies and the men. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So at this moment, it's my family just joined. Thank you. It's just about 30 seconds behind. But today, we're blessed with a city staff member, Assistant City Manager and Human Resource Director Isabel Carlos, City Clerk Lang Tran, and our Interim Management Assistant Nicole Huang, and to receive this proclamation on behalf of all the women who work dedicated to the success of our city every day. All right, would you please join us at the podium for a photo?
I'm coming.
And next up on item number 2 is the agenda overview and staff briefing. City Manager, Mr. Tom Williams, would you please provide a city update?
Yes, thank you. Good evening to you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Tom Williams, City Manager. I would like to start off with a little video. If we can roll the video, please.
Okay, what city manager is trying to...
We had to do that for a great video. So last night on The Voice, two brothers, Jeremy and Justin Garcia, they're seniors here in Millbrae, seniors in high school, 17 years old. They're twins. They showcased their exceptional musical talents last night on The Voice. And top-notch musical talents. We'd like to congratulate them and their epic performance when you watch the video last night, and the congratulations on a performance well done. So they're moving on to the next phase on The Voice. So I think we could have a couple of twins and their talents. I mean, it was fantastic. So Jeremy and Justin, congratulations out there, and we are proud of you and what you did. All right, so moving on, storm preparedness. We have weathered the storm quite well, relatively speaking. A few minor flood incidents, as I reported last time. We do have some storms that are forecasted for later on this week, starting Thursday evening, Friday, Saturday. Just want to let everybody know that with this forecast, we are continuing to prepare for the storm. We have our sandbag filling station that is located on Millbrae Avenue between Hazel and Elder. It's along the spur trail, Millbrae Avenue, just on the south side of Millbrae Avenue. So we have sandbags, shovels. So if you need any sandbags to assist your property, feel free for Millbrae residents. Also, pickleball. I think the council and the community is well aware of some of the issues that we're having with pickleball. It's a great sport, very popular, but it's noisy. The paddles make a lot of pinging noises, and with the residents around the tennis courts at the recreation center, we're working with them, and we're going to, at this time, start to limit the hours of operation. We've worked with the neighborhood, so pickleball will start at 9 a.m. and end at 8 p.m. We are also going to be investing in some soft paddles that have come out to reduce the noise. So we're going to continue to work to make sure that pickleball and the sound emanating from the paddles is not a nuisance for the neighborhood. So continue to monitor it, and more to come. Also, our CERT training is underway. We're currently in the last part of our new CERT training, January 17th. It started. We have 6 sessions to our left. And with that, we're also excited to announce that our CERT stands for Community Emergency Response. We have a training session that will be offered and conducted in Chinese Mandarin. And so this training specifically aims to equip Chinese-speaking individuals with the necessary skills and knowledge to effectively respond to emergencies and contribute to the safety and well-being of the community. The training will include a wide range of topics: first aid, fire safety, emergency evacuation procedures, basic search and rescue, and disaster preparedness. It begins, or what starts on April 9th and will go through May 4th, 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. The training will be at the Burlingame Recreation Center, and we have flyers that are available on our website, ci.millbrae.ca.us. Okay, so we have upcoming events. On March 5th, 2024, we have Senior Stories, so be sure to join us for our Senior Stories on Tuesday, as I said, March 5th at 10 a.m. at the Millbrae Recreation Center. There's coffee, pastries, and storytelling. There's no RSVP that is necessary, and it's a great opportunity to come and meet and other people and learn about the community. And the program does continue the first Tuesday of every month. Also, we had 2 very successful senior luncheons on February 13th. Both attended by more than 70 seniors, celebrating both Valentine's Day and Lunar New Year. Alan, our online dance instructor that you may know, did a special demonstration of music in motion. A lot of activity by our seniors. We also had a raffle with prizes, which was a huge hit. The next luncheon is scheduled for March 12th at 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Reservations are required because it's been so popular. But the fee to participate is $5 unless it's your birthday, and then it's free. So to RSVP, you can contact our Recreation Center at 650-259-2338. Again, 650-259-2338, or log on to our website for information. Next, we have our summer camp fair that we're excited to host this year. March 15th is the date from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. The meeting will be held at the Millbrae Recreation Center, so you can come learn about all of our summer camp activities and programs. The first 100 guests will receive free pizza that evening, so we encourage all the parents and people interested in our summer camp to attend the meeting March 15th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the Millbrae Recreation Center. And again, you can also log on to our website for more information at recreation@ci.millbrae.ca.us. And I think, Mayor, that kind of concludes the happenings here in the city of Millbrae over the last couple of weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. And next up is the approval of minutes, and we have the regular meeting minutes from November 14, 2023. We have a special meeting minutes of November 28, 2023. Do we have any council comments? Seeing none, I would love to entertain a motion if anyone would like to make it.
Motion to approve?
We've had a motion from Councilwoman Schneider and a second from Councilwoman Cahalan. Any final comments? City Clerk, would you please do a roll call?
Councilmember Snyder?
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen?
Yes.
Councilmember Cahalan?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman?
Aye.
Mayor Fung?
Aye.
The 2 set of minutes are approved by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you so much. Next up is oral report, and from City Committee, we have none today. And following that is public communications. This portion of the agenda is reserved for those who wish to comment on any item not appearing on tonight's agenda. However, speaker must address subject matters within the jurisdiction of the City Council. Every speaker will have 3 minutes, and speaker is to address directly to the entire council, not individual council members, nor the public. We will first begin with in-person speakers and then followed by virtual speakers online. All right. Our first speaker is Mr. Ken Smith. You can join us at the podium, please.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
You can get closer to the mic. I would appreciate
My
it.
name is Ken Smith.
Thank you.
I live at 218 Taylor Boulevard, and I'm just in a couple of concerns, two concerns that my neighbors and neighborhood kind of wanted me to address. The first one was the downtown paid parking. Some of the concerns that are being addressed that we want you to think about a little bit is, one, we understand the funding for the garage, for additional parking. And is there any other kind of source of income that could support that? Two, there are many seniors who struggle with e-based parking meters. They can't, I see it in Safeway too with the new coupon app. They just struggle and they can't deal with it, and they can barely use their smartphones. So it's not like the old days when you put the coin in the meter, right? And so we have a lot of seniors that I believe will struggle with this and avoid going downtown because of it. Being 2 blocks off of Broadway or a block and a half of Broadway, I have a lot of neighbors that are very concerned that people just don't want to pay and they'll be parking in our neighborhood. And I already struggle every single day parking in front of my house. So it's just going to be a much bigger impact, I think, for our neighbors. And I guess the last thing is we're all kind of tired of the parklets that are not being used on Broadway. And can those be removed? And are you able to do anything about that? So those are kind of the concerns of parking that my neighbors have come and talked to me about. I don't know why I'm the conduit of the neighborhood, but people seem to come up and chat with me about certain things. The last thing I wanted to talk about was Samtrans removing 3 of the bus stops on El Camino. And there was a lot of concern about seniors who really have mobility issues. And basically what it did was it put a half mile between each bus stop. And so it really is showing difficulty for seniors to get to the bus stop now. When it was just a minute to walk, now it's 11 or 12 minutes for them to walk, and they're suffering because of that. I don't understand why Samtrans just didn't leave the stop there. If there was no one there, you just pass on by. But if there's someone that really needs that short distance of the bus stop, it's really suffering our senior community. Thank you for your time. I truly appreciate it. That's all.
Thank you, Ken. And next up, we have Speaker Ed Musa, please.
Hi, Mayor, City Council. Thank you for having me. My name is Ed Musa. I live at 1373 Millbrae Avenue. I've been a resident in Millbrae for, almost 40 years. 50 years, since 75. And the reason I'm up here today is about the situation that's going on in Gaza, the people that are dying. We're looking to hold a rally in Millbrae right here in front of City Hall. We have a lot of Palestinian Americans and Arab Americans living in Millbrae. They all are just suffering with what's going on. They have family that have passed. I've spoken to many of them, and how they had to travel from the north of Gaza to southern Gaza to eventually die in southern Gaza, which is tremendously terrible. We're hoping for some sort of a ceasefire. We're hoping for humanitarian aid. I know everybody talks about it, but every single day that we talk about it, people are dying and nothing's happening. So we're hoping to have some sort of a rally out in front of here, March 16th at 1 p.m. We'd love to have everybody come out and support a ceasefire and humanitarian aid. We're going to be having a lot of clergy out here, people from all sorts of, all over the world, coming out. We have a lot of friends and a lot of supporters, and we'd love to have more, just to hear about what they have to say, what they're feeling, and that's about it. Appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. All right. Yes, Mr. City Manager.
Mayor, I hate to interrupt. I forgot to do one thing on my update, if I may.
Yes, please.
I failed. I'd like to introduce our new fire chief for Central County Fire Department. This is Chief David Pucci that joined CCFD at the helm last month. He attended a meeting, an information meeting on Saturday morning. First time I was introduced to the chief. Pleasure to know him. Brings years of experience to the position and just a delight. So pleasure to introduce and congratulate Chief Pucci on his appointment as a CCFD Fire Chief.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Please.
Thank you.
Chief Pucci.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'd like you to keep me on my toes in the agenda, not knowing exactly what I'm going to come up. It's a pleasure to be here. Something that's a very high priority to me is really to build relationships, and that's what my first 3 weeks have been really focused on in CCFD. And being part of the management team in San Carlos and Redwood City, as well as getting to know the council members, that's a priority for me. So thank you for having me here. I'm always open to a phone call or a cup of coffee, and I look forward to getting all of you and city staff getting to know you better. So thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for keeping us safe every day. Yes, Mr. City Manager?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, all right. Excellent. Thank you, Chief. All right. Online speakers? Ms. Tran?
There are no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. So we're closing public committee.
We just received one hand.
Okay, go ahead.
So Patricia L., please state your full name for the record and accept unmute, please.
Hi there. Yes. Hi. Thank you very much. I'm Patricia Lam. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. I wanted to talk about SamTrans removal of the ECR bus stops in Millbrae, creating a lot of nightmares for elderly residents, young children, low-income families, people who do not drive, and people who do not own a car. I have an elderly friend in her late 70s who live in the apartment on San Juan Avenue in Millbrae. She has issues with pain in her knees. In the past, she just needs to walk half a block from her apartment and get to the ECR bus stop at El Camino and Millwood. As of this month, this bus stop has been removed. Now she has to walk half a mile to the bus stop outside of Toto's Pizza in San Bruno. The removal of this bus stop has created a problem for her as she has mobility issues and doesn't drive. Can you imagine seniors, young children, students walking half a mile in the downpours that we've been having lately? Taking ECR is a lot cheaper than taking BART or Caltrain. The bus fare is only a fraction of the BART or Caltrain fare. This public transportation provides low-income families, seniors, school-age students, and people who do not own a car, a form of transportation. Mayors and councils, please help these seniors and families. We all get old and eventually cannot drive. We need SamTrans to restore these removed bus stops in Millbrae to help these folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patricia. Elaine, anything else? Anyone else?
No other hands are raised.
Okay, thank you so much. We're closing public communication. Moving on to consent calendar. We've got 4 items tonight. Before I start reading them, does anyone want to pull any item from the consent calendar for discussions? No, okay. So item number 5, receive and file monthly general fund financial report for the period ending January 31st, 2024. Waive, number 6, waive the second reading and adopt an ordinance amending Article 38, Millbrae Station Area Specific Plan Development Impact Fee, Section 1005, 1856, and Article 31. Development Impact Fee, Section 1005, 3120C of Title 10, Planning and Zoning of the Millbrae Municipal Code, authorizing the City Council by resolution to postpone automatic increases to the development impact fee for a period of up to 3 years, applicable to SB 330 projects only. Item 7, adoptions of a resolution authorizing the retroactive postponement of the automatic annual adjustment to the Millbrae Station Area Specific Plan and citywide development impact fees applicable to SB 330 projects only. Item 8, adoptions of a resolution accepting the Upper Hillcrest Subbasin for pavement repair project as complete and authorizing the filing of a notice of completion. I'll entertain a motion if anyone would like to make it.
Happy to make a motion, but a comment.
Oh, sure, of course.
Just for the public record, on agenda item number 8, I live 3 houses away from where the work was done. It shouldn't preclude me from voting, but just for the record.
Thank you for the disclosure. Anyone else? Any motions?
I
Miss?
made the motion.
Oh, you did. Okay, all right. Go ahead. Any seconds?
Pappen, second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Pappen. Any further comments? City Clerk, would you please do a roll call?
Councilmember Snyder?
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen?
Yes.
Councilmember Cahalan?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman?
Aye.
Mayor Fong?
Aye.
The consent calendar passed by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you so much. Moving into public hearing. The first item is item number 9, Fire Suppression Assessment Public Hearing. And Mr. Williams, would you please present any staff report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce Mr. Mike Sung, the City Finance Director, for a presentation.
All right. Thank you, City Manager Williams. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Today we'll be talking about the Millbrae fire assessment. This is our public hearing. Next slide, please. So about fire services in Millbrae. We actually have 2 fire stations in Millbrae, Fire Station 37 and Fire Station 38. They're strategically located. They're professionally staffed. They're staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. And our fire services are provided for by Central County Fire Department. We received the 911 and emergency medical response calls from these stations. Next slide, please. So as you can see on this map, these are where the stations are. Fire Station 37 is right next door over here at 511 Magnolia, and Fire Station 38 is up where Crestview is on 785 Crestview Drive. Next slide, please. So the current fire assessment uses an upcoming expiration. So just a little background on the fire assessment. Back in 2004, Millbrae had a fire assessment, and basically this stream of funding was dedicated specifically for our fire services. And it can't be taken by the county or the state. This is specifically just for fire services in Millbrae. The original assessment parcel was about $15 a month or $175 a year, and this totaled about $1.6 million. This hasn't been increased since 2004. Our inflation rate since then in the last 20 years has been about 71%. So the assessment was renewed in 2009 and then re-renewed again in 2014 for 10 years. It's set to expire this year unless it's reauthorized by property owners. All parcels would continue to pay the assessment, and this would include government and non-profit entities as well. Nobody's really exempt from the fire assessment. Next slide, please. So the new proposed assessment is approximately $299, and that's about $25 a month. It's a $10 increase. This really just keeps up with the CPI over the last 20 years. And the $299 is really for your regular homes, for like single and duplexes. If you look at apartments, they're being assessed at $214 per unit. It's about $18 per month. And then commercial property is actually determined by land use. And that's determined by per room, square footage per bed, or per parcel. You can see on the little chart on to the side what the different types of land use are and how that's actually assessed. All property owners, once again, do pay this assessment, private, public, and nonprofit, and every parcel pays their fair share. Next slide, please. So why is the assessment needed? We need to keep the firefighting and life savings equipment and facilities to date. So we want to maintain our rapid response times for fire protection and 911. As City Manager Williams had indicated, there was a community meeting on the 24th. On Saturday, we had a few people show up, and our new fire chief was gracious enough to show up as well. He's had given us kind of an idea of the metrics we're looking at. We wanted to make sure that the response times stay underneath 7 minutes. I believe it's 6 minutes and 59 seconds. We want 90% of calls to fall within that category, which is a very good standard to have because you want to really rush in and get that taken care of. So this is also to help equip firefighters to better respond to fires, maintain our effectiveness and emergency services as well, and emergency rescue services. Next slide, please. So our accountability provisions will continue. We've always had mandatory financial audits. Every year we have audits just to see where the money's going and where it's coming from. And that would continue. What's new with this new proposed assessment is the Citizens Oversight Committee. We're looking at 7 people, 1 from each district plus 2 at large to form the Citizens Oversight Committee. And they would come back with recommendations to council if there were any changes or tweaks that they would look at as well. Next slide, please. If the fire assessment isn't approved, right now, the money here can't be taken by the state or the county, which is a very big deal because we have a lot of headwinds with the state, especially with their budget deficit and what's going on there. So this is set to expire in 2024, this year. This is really critical to ensuring the level of service that everybody's used to, good service, good levels that we want to have. We don't actually have that. We might be making some pretty difficult choices moving forward. Next slide, please. So just to show you what the share is for Central County Fire, this is the actual contribution share for CCFD between Millbrae, Hillsborough, and Burlingame. So you'll see that Millbrae contributes about 26%, Hillsborough about 28%, Burlingame about 42%, and then there's about 4% from other revenue, which really includes stuff like grants. Next slide, please. So here's an actual chart of the funding versus fire services, and it looks a little strange because the top of the chart is of the actual current year, but what you'll see is this is a percentage versus fire services total cost. You'll see for 23-24, we're hovering at about 15%. And back in 14-15, you're looking at maybe about 28-29%. As the fire assessments continued on, the amounts remained the same, but fire services have gotten more expensive. So the percentage has shrunk. Over the last 10 years, it's almost halved. That's what that actually looks like there. Next slide, please. So here's a timeline of what's occurred. In 2004, we approved the first fire assessment. It was renewed in 2009. 2014, we reapproved it as well. And then back in November 28th, 2023, Council approved sending out a fire assessment ballot and a notice of public hearing. So we reached out physically and digitally in December and February, through February. We mailed out the fire assessment ballot and notice of public hearing on January 12th. On the January 24th and on February 24th, we had 2 informational meetings with the fire assessment. And today, for the public hearing, it's actually the last date to vote. And just a reminder out there to people, if they still actually want to vote, there are ballots that are available here. What you would do is just get a ballot during the public hearing before it closes, because the limit is actually when it closes. You can actually get a ballot here before it closes, fill it out. We'll just verify that over there with our consultants at Harris. That's Rick and Sunny there. And then we'll double check that, get that ballot in, and we can actually place it into that box before the public hearing actually closes. Tomorrow, on the 28th, we will tally the votes at approximately 10 a.m. here in the council chambers. And this is open to the public. You can actually click on a link to actually see this as well. You're welcome to come here to take a look at everybody. It'll be conducted by Harris and Associates, plus city clerk and her staff. And then on March 12th, we will be coming back to council with the results of the vote, and that will be presented at the next council meeting on March 12th. Next slide, please. So with that, here to take any questions, anything technical. We can also have Harris help answer some of the more technical questions, as they did do the engineer's report for the fire assessment as well.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you, Mike. Does anybody have any questions? Councilwoman Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for the presentation. Can you pull up the slide that shows the commercial breakdown? Because what I want the public to understand, and I want me to understand, is where the agencies, the public agencies that own quite a bit of land in Millbrae, where do they fall in this chart? And for the public, that could be San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, the Water Works. It can include SFO that owns a large swath of the east side of Millbrae. It could include Caltrain's PG&E and BART.
Yeah, so it's actually a combination of these different pieces in itself, which would include institutional. There's also a lot of open space and vacant. The city itself's gotten quite a few of the ballots because the city itself is actually a property owner as well. And BART, for example, they had submitted in their ballots today. They also own quite a few ballots. I believe it was 19. A lot of that's open space and vacant. There's a couple of institutional, and I think there might be one that's construed as residential as well. But everybody, including the schools, all the public entities, nonprofits, as well as all of the private industries, fall within these different ranges of land use.
And just for the public agencies on non-commercial land, so not outdoor hardware supply, but the public land, they don't necessarily pay property tax, but they do pay the fire assessment.
Because this is an assessment, it's not actually a tax.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so without further comment, I would like to open up the public hearing. We have a couple speaker slips in front of me here. So the first speaker is Tom Mariscote. Please join us at the podium. Followed by Mr. Patrick King.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I'm speaking in opposition of the fire district tax. You know, you raised the tax this year 100%. I listened to what the finance director said, and I understand that. I see what it cost. But you know, when the joint powers agreement was made with Burlingame, Hillsborough, and the city of Millbrae, the reason for that was twofold. Provide better service to the cities and to cut expenses. They did it at a time when there were 2 fire chiefs leaving. Sorry to do this on your first night, Chief, but they did it when 2 fire chiefs were leaving, and they were able to do that quite well. During the first assessment, the fire department actually went out and talked to the neighbors, every single neighbor. I watched them do it. And the $144 was a reasonable amount. But to raise it in 1 year, to double it in 1 year, how many of you, if you got your property tax bill and it was double what it was last year, would be upset about it? I think they cut the fire service in terms of the cost, and I realize everything goes up, but I just don't think raising it 100% is the right thing to do in 1 year. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we have the next speaker, Mr. Patrick King.
Hello. Hello, Mayor, council members. While I do support the needs for fire protection funds, I actually do not currently agree with the current assessment that unfairly burdens condo homeowners by nearly 40% compared to similar multifamily residences. In the mailed documents, the proposed rate structure is based on land use with residential 1 to 2 units at $300 and multifamily residences 3 or more units at $214 per dwelling. This assessment classifies condos as residential at $300, which contradicts Millbrae's own zoning map dated December 2022 that designates condo land use as R3 multiple family. The fire assessment fee uses APN, or Assessor's Parcel Number, which is based on a consultant or administrative planning decision. Since, to my knowledge, there is no code within the California Building Code or the National Fire Protection Association that dictates that fees must be based on APN or that condos must be classified as single-family units. I did speak with Rick from Harris Associates, who are the consultants who provide the engineering report for this assessment about the use of APN for condo cost estimates, and confirmed that the discrepancies may have been an oversight set long before in 2004 when this fire assessment began. I do request that if the measure passes today, and since there's a need for fire protection, that the council revise the costs to be more equitable in future payments based on land use for condo owners, since condo buildings are not more or less fire prone than apartment buildings. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Does the staff want to address any of those comment at all? City Manager?
Well, Mayor, I'd rather wait for all of public comment, public
Okay.
testimony, then address the questions, if that's okay.
Fair enough, although because I don't see any hand raised, I'm done with my speaker slip, so this practically could be the end of the public speaking.
Okay, so I'll look to the city attorney to officially close the public hearing,
Okay? Yep.
unless the council wants to keep it open
Okay.
during discussion.
Perfect. Hold on. All right, let's not get out of hand. Is there any other speakers who want to speak on this item?
Mayor, I don't see any hands raised, and I have no other additional speaker slips.
Okay, so we'll close public comment. Okay, Well,
Do we want to
Actually,
give
the hearing
folks an
is-
opportunity to vote before the close of the public hearing?
If I may, so
yeah, okay,
procedurally,
procedurally, yes,
this is a public hearing.
right?
Once the public hearing's closed, that is a deadline for people to submit their ballots. So under the law, since this is a public hearing, you must officially close the public hearing. And so, correct.
Okay, all right.
Be good to do a vote. Maybe just announce if anyone else has a ballot they would like to submit. Now is the time.
Oh, okay, Ms. Pappen?
Okay, most elections stop at 8 p.m. So I think people are just used to that. I don't know what we published or what, but I know it's it's just assessment, I get that. But I'm a little uncomfortable of closing something off before 8 p.m. I mean, we don't need to wait around till then, but if you want to be formal about it,
All of the noticing said that the deadline for voting is at the end of the public hearing.
Okay, so let's
If
just,
there's anything improper, it's certainly up to the council if you want to wait or you want to keep it open, you're more than welcome to do that.
let's do this. We're talking about two different things here. The first thing is to address the question that the public raised. The second is the voting deadline. There's two different things we're talking about. So I just want to address, does the staff want to address the public comment first? If you do, and I'll bring it back to the council comment in a moment.
Yeah, but just for clarification, so the public hearing is still open, so if
Correct.
anybody from the public would like to come up and address the council, there's still an opportunity to do.
Fair enough, yes.
Okay, just for, so I'd like to bring up our finance director and then our assessment district engineer from the company Harrison Associates to address the first question about the multifamily versus condominium and the APN issue, the way the assessment was allocated.
Director Sung. Oh,
Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Rick Clark from Harrison Associates. I spoke with Mr. King, as he said, a very nice man. I understood his reasoning behind what he was asking for, mostly because the the condominium units he lives in is designed and structured just like an apartment complex. We, as engineers, typically will assign condominiums the same assessment as a single-family home, like he said, because they are assigned their own APN. Multifamilies, in the case of assessments, at least for how we look at them, it's always looked at as a parcel number. A parcel number could have 50 or 100 units on it as an apartment complex, whereas a condo, it has individual APNs. What he mentioned, Mr. King mentioned about the fact that I wouldn't call it an oversight, as he called it, but things do change over the years. And we were not tasked with looking at a new methodology, how to differently spread these costs. We were just looked at, this is the newer rate for these assessments. I know and I told this to Mr. King, there were, when this was initially formed in 2004, there was likely no thought for properties with dual uses, multifamily and retail, retail and office, things like that. Those exist now, and we as the engineers have to address those and look at them. That's why you'll see some of these, the tables in this report it says parcel numbers, but it's a percentage. That's why we're trying to make that fit where it wasn't considered in the original formation. So that was why we assigned the APNs, or the condominiums, the single APN, like a single-family home. That's how we standardly do that. But again, Mr. King's right that you, as the council, could change that if you chose to. It may be something that maybe you want to have the Citizens Committee talk about at some point. But that's why it was done that way.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Mike, did you have anything?
Wanted to see if you wanted a response on the other numbers that were looked at. The assessment's $175 right now.
Yeah, so let's address all the public comment that we've heard, and then we'll come back to the council comment and questions after.
Can we get clarification?
Yeah, the assessment is $175 for a single-family home right now.
Okay.
It's like $174.82, but it's $175 basically.
And if I may, Mayor,
From
so-
the last gentleman, I'm sorry, the last speaker here. Is this new? I mean, this assessment has come before us before. This new presentation, this building the gentleman spoke about is not new. Is this what we are proposing during this assessment?
During
Is
this
this different
assessment,
from
we're
previously?
proposing to increase the assessment to $299.
No, Mike, if I may, she's talking about two different things. So she's talking about the assessment, the allocation. The methodology in 2004 is the same as it is today. So there has been no change in the methodology of the assessment between condominiums and apartments and single-family homes.
Thank
So
you.
that's been consistent. To address the issue that the other gentleman raised, as our finance director is saying, it's not a 100% increase, it's a 72% increase. And it goes from $15 a month to $25 a month. So it's a $10 a month increase per parcel. And that's a difference between $175 and $299. And so that addresses, so it is a 72% increase. As Mr. Sung presented, this is keeping pace with inflation. It has not been raised since 2004. And as we know, the allocation of the assessment as a percentage to the overall fire department budget has eroded over the years. And this assessment brings it back to about 28%, meaning that the revenue derived from the property-based assessment covers about 28% of the total fire department budget, which was the original percentage. It was actually a little bit higher in 2004. It was right about a third.
30% in 2004.
In 2004. So 20 years later, this just keeps pace with inflation.
Okay, all right, thank you. Without any further comment from staff, Ms. Schneider, you have a comment?
I had one general question from what I was reading on Nextdoor earlier, and then a question on process, because when we get back to the conversation of closing the public hearing, the staff report actually says we're continuing the public hearing until March 12th. So just clarify that when the time comes. My question was, there's been a lot of discussion that Millbrae is the only one that has a special assessment, but I know that Hillsborough has a special assessment because they're they're considered one of the most dangerous wildland urban interfaces in the county. So they have assessed themselves additional funding to take care of fire prevention on that. Are there any other special assessments in Burlingame that help cover the cost of fire or other public safety?
I'm unaware of Burlingame. Hillsborough, I believe, has a parcel tax to actually help assess that as well. In regards to the continuance of the item, you would open the public hearing, and I believe you would close the public hearing, but you can continue the item.
Continue the item. Okay,
afterwards.
thank you.
Hopefully, Mr. Connor in here will.
Well, if we ask a few more questions.
We're going to simply bring back the results to the city council officially on the 12th. That's the only reason for the continuance.
Okay.
But the report's clear. The public
report's
hearing will be closed tonight.
Public hearing's closed,
Okay.
balloting closes when the public hearing closes. We'll count the votes, and then we report back officially at the next council meeting.
Okay, so just from a procedural perspective, what I'm hearing is as soon as we close the public hearing, the poll closes, correct? Okay, and it does not have to be 8 p.m.
It does not have to be 8 p.m. That's
Okay.
totally different.
Got
section of the
it,
law.
okay. So I just wanted to have some clarity here. Do I have a motion to close public hearing?
Noticing
Mr.
people
Conneran?
coming up with ballots, I think we want to say if anybody else in the audience has a ballot, bring it up now.
Sure. If, does anyone else wants to turn in their fire assessment ballot, now is the time to do so.
I still see some action out here.
Okay, I got it. Yes, please. Elaine will help you.
Mayor, there might be a public comment.
Okay, so, 1, 2, 3. So just a point of order, legal. So does it mean that we cannot close public hearing until all these ballots
I would prefer
are?
that we do not close the public ballot. People are voting in the audience.
Understand. So I'm just trying to figure out the point of,
I would recommend that you keep it open until everyone who's present in the room has had a chance to
yeah,
submit their ballot.
all right. So
Okay.
I guess unless there's any other questions,
Take a recess. Unless there's other questions, we could.
we can,
We can take a
recess.
quick.
We can take a 5
recess
minutes.
And let people, will help.
yeah,
own
I think that would be a right thing to do. Any other comment from the council?
Yes.
Ms. Pappen?
What are the assurances that the services are maintained? Because we are a contract with Central Fire, and we've fought long and hard to keep both stations open here. So what do our assurances do our residents have? That these services will be maintained? Can anybody address that?
So we have a contract with Central County Fire Department, and so they're contractually obligated to provide the services pursuant to the contract, which is maintaining both fire stations 24/7 with the response times and the metrics that Mr. Sung had mentioned. Also, services for fire marshal, which are cost recovery for building inspection, building the services through the fire marshal's office.
So Millbrae maintains ownership of these stations, is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Yeah, just to that point, one public comment a moment ago discussed how this new JPA was formed between Millbrae, Burlingame, and Hillsborough. I just want to bring to clarification that this JPA, Central Fire Department, Millbrae still doesn't have a board seat on there in terms of governance. So this JPA, technically speaking, has not annexed City of Millbrae in it, which if we were to be a part of the district, then we should have governance and be able to, as Ms. Pappen discussed a moment ago, be able to ensure services and resources are being allocated in a way that ensure every Millbrae residents get the service they need. So I think that is also a discussion that is worth having in the near future to ensure that those who pay into the district also has representation. Ms. Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff, we've got Station 37 right here and 38 up on the hill. Could you remind the public when these buildings were built? Because what we have talked about in terms of the fire assessment and the increase of the fire assessment is that the buildings, just like our homes, need to be maintained and need to be upgraded, especially with the new requirements that fire providers do nowadays. Tell us a little bit about both Fire Station 37 and 38 in terms of delayed maintenance that we can now pay for, or hopefully we'll be able to pay for.
Well, yeah, so clarification on this. So this fire assessment is just to maintain the current level of service as it is today. Because the inflation, the cost of the fire services increased. As we said, inflation 72% over the last 20 years. So this is not an assessment in addition to maintaining the cost of service for capital improvement needs.
Okay.
We do maintenance on the fire station, which is part of our budget to make sure that, it is properly maintained for, the emergency facilities, everything that the firefighting personnel needs as they are housed at the station. So this isn't to rebuild any of the fire stations, but it is to maintain the current level of service with the Healthy Fire Department. And I think then to the mayor's point, there is a JPA, but Millbrae is not part of the JPA. We just retain CCFD. So in essence, we're just a client. We're a contract client. And so that's how it works right now.
Any other comments or questions from the council? Ms. Pappen?
Can you explain further the oversight committee? How many are on it? How they're selected? How often they meet?
So for the oversight committee, we're looking at 7 people, 1 from each of the 5 districts, plus 2 at large. I believe the oversight committee would be appointed by the mayor and city council. And meeting frequency, I mean, we'll probably have to work on what that would be, but yeah, I believe it would be 7, 1 from each district, 2 at large, and then would be appointed by the city council.
If I may follow up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think the oversight committee's reported out to the council.
I was
or
going to get
the
to that
public.
too. Trying to define the function of that
Yeah.
Citizen Oversight Committee. That was my question that I wanted to ask.
There is not an oversight committee, and there never was. But with this, if this is adopted, this assessment then requires the city to form a
I
new
believe
oversight.
there was one in the past.
There was not.
Okay, and, sorry, go ahead, Ms.
Yeah, I was
Go ahead,
going
Mike.
to mention that we haven't had one, as City Manager Williams said. This is brand new. When I was presenting this, we did have the audits before. We still have the audits. It's this new oversight committee. That's the new item that would be added with the new assessment.
And my question is, should this, when this oversight committee is formed, that 1 from each district and then 2 at large, total 7, what would be the function and the duty of this oversight committee?
The functions and the duty of the oversight committee, we would look to them to actually take a look at the fire assessment, and they would look to see what is collected, which we would report out, where it's spent, which would be on the fire services.
Right.
As well. Plus, they'd probably also solicit in comments from council, from the public, just to see what people are actually looking at, and then kind of come back to council with a report on that.
I see. So it's oversight of how the resources are being allocated and how money is being spent,
But there's
essentially.
also other items that are looked at, like duration, like other little nuances, like is this rate fair? We want to talk about.
What about quality of service,
Yeah, we'd look at everything, I believe.
response time, all of those?
And we would get a lot of these metrics from CCFD, so you can actually review that.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Okay, so unless anybody has any comments or questions, I think we're just about that time. Well, they're going to continue to vote, but, let's give folks another 2.5 minutes until 8 p.m. Yeah, we'll come back at 8 p.m. Good.
Sorry, Mayor.
No worries. Okay, recess over. We call this meeting back to order at 8:05 PM exactly. So do I have a motion to close public hearing? For item 9.
So moved.
Okay. We have a motion from Councilmember Cahalan.
Second.
We have a second from Councilmember Schneider. Can we do a roll call, please?
Councilmember Snyder.
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen.
Yes.
Councilmember Cahalan.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman.
Aye.
Mayor Fung.
Aye.
The
Hearing.
public hearing is closed by a vote 5-0.
Okay, all right. So we bring this back to the council for any further discussions. Anything else from this council? This is an action item.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
unless there's more comment, your action item is to continue this matter to the next council meeting, which I believe is March 12th. And just, I don't know if we were clear, the votes are going to be counted tomorrow in this room, right? It's on
Correct.
MCTV, so that people want to observe the count, they're more than welcome. But we will get the count tomorrow, and then we report that to the meeting on March 12th, and you'll have the opportunity, in case, if the protest is not successful, to adopt a resolution to impose the assessment.
Sounds good.
Now you just need a motion to continue the hearing, continue the item to the next.
Thank you, Mr. Conneran. Any further comment before I ask for a motion? Okay. Ms. Pappen.
Do we have on the website a fact sheet that went out for bullet points so people know? For instance, there was a representation tonight, it went up over 100%. Just reference here, it went up 72%, which is a lot, but it was been 20 years. So is there a fact sheet on our website explaining?
Yes, there is a fact sheet on our website. It's underneath the fire assessment. If you go onto the city website and you search for fire assessment, there is a page that will connect you there. There are FAQs there that will explain many things.
And just to be clear, if anybody's watching, this relates to property owners only.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, can we entertain a motion to bring this item, to continue this item until the next council meeting on March 12th to report out the vote, the ballot counting, and the result?
Motion to continue this item to March 12th, 2024.
We have a motion from Ms. Schneider. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Vice Mayor. Can we do a roll call, please?
Before you call,
Ms. Pappen?
at that time, can we get details on the vote as to turnout district, just the voter details for our own purposes here? We can see what's going on and where.
Mr. Williams, we want to address the detail at which would be available on March 12th?
Yes, certainly. So I think that we have around 3,500 ballots that were already submitted to the city before this evening. So we will count them tomorrow. We have not opened them. We'll open them tomorrow at 10 a.m. As has been mentioned, plenty of witnesses and open to the public. And then we'll count them. And I think hopefully we'll be able to get them all done tomorrow. If not, then we'll have to continue it to the next day. But once we have that, then I'll notify the city council with an information correspondence as to how many we received and what the results were.
And just a reminder, the vote is done by the amount of each voter's assessment. So it's somewhat complicated, although not
It's a
computer, but
That's right.
it's not just, yes, no. You don't just count the number. You have to do a tabulation of each vote and whether it's for or against and the amount, and then that's the total. So it is going to take some time.
Yeah, it's weighted based on the size of the property and the land use. And so it's pretty sophisticated. If you noticed on your ballot, there's a barcode. So the barcode is scanned. It's already programmed in terms of the weighted.
And it's the one type of election where we can actually see who voted yes and who voted no, as far as property owners.
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
And if I just may have a suggestion, that Ms. Pappen, if there's any specific statistical parameter like you see,
Yeah, I
would
mean, it
be,
would be very interesting.
just work
for
with
us
staff to make
see-
sure we have that.
if you have a large property owner that voted no, and, it's of interest to us to see who's in, and what percentage, how many property owners do we have? Just, if you're going to report out, instead of simply yes or no, it would be very interesting for us to have those further details, please.
Okay, that's a great point.
You have some
Mr. Mayor?
redirect? Yes.
Thank you. Just a simple way to explain how the balloting tabulation and the weighting works is looking at it as you get one vote for every dollar of your assessment. So you could look at it that way, 299 votes for a single-family home, 214 for a multifamily apartment complex. That's just a simple way to do that, just for the public who wanted to, get an idea of how that tabulation weighting works. It's $1 per vote for the most part. Look at it, easy way to look at it.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Any other further comment before we do the roll call? Ms. Tran?
Councilmember Snyder? Aye. Councilmember Pappen?
Yes.
Councilmember Cahalan?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman?
Aye.
Mayor Fung?
Aye.
The council motion to continue the item to March 12, 2024 City Council meeting passed by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you so much. And item number 10, a public hearing to review and adopt the sixth cycle housing element, including revisions in response to comments from the California Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD. Is an action item, Mr. City Manager?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce Mr. Andy Mogensen, our Community Development Director, for a presentation.
Director Mogensen.
Good evening, Mayor Fung, members of the City Council. It's been a long road. I'm very happy that we are at the end of that road. Housing elements are probably the largest single planning document that cities prepare these days. As you can see, tonight I want to thank all of the staff who worked on this. I want to thank our consultants at Harrison Associates, and I want to introduce our consultant this evening who's going to be presenting online, Hida Mosesman from Harris. Hida, are you there?
I am here.
All right. So she's going to be presenting this evening on the housing element. And with that, I will let you take it away.
Thank you, Andy. I'm going to share my screen. So good evening, Mayor and members of the council. As Andy said, my name is Hida Mosesman. I'm with Harrison Associates, and we're here to present an update for you on the sixth cycle housing element update. I think Andy had introduced himself, the Community Development Director. Planning Manager Roscoe Mata was also part of this team, as is Nestor Guevara, Associate Planner with the city and the Project Manager on the city side. And then, of course, I join you this evening. I'm Hida Mosesman, the Vice President of Community Development and Housing at Harris. And we assisted the city staff preparing the housing element update. The recommendation before you this evening is to review the housing element update revisions in response to comments from the California Department of Housing and Community Development, who I will refer to as HCD, and to adopt your final sixth cycle housing element update as it has been certified by the state HCD. A little bit of background on the housing element, since it's been a few months since it was brought before you. It is the primary planning document to address community housing needs. It is an element as part of your general plan, and it is required for every jurisdiction in California to not only prepare a housing element update, but to update it then every 8 years. It is the only element of the general plan that must be certified by the state, and specifically the state HCD, Housing and Community Development Department. As Andy had mentioned, it has been a bit of a long road, as it's been, I think, for all jurisdictions in California. This draft housing element was originally sent to HCD in October of 2022 for their initial review. Their review periods are lengthy, it's 60 days each time. After a few rounds of review and some revisions, we're happy to report that on February 21st, HCD provided a letter with a finding of substantial legal compliance, which really, in other words, means certification. The edits required to obtain HC certification in this last round really fall into three buckets, with the first bucket being sort of the most involved, which was to provide additional programs to address housing mobility. And when I refer to housing mobility, what that means is city actions or policies to promote housing units and housing opportunities for the community throughout the community, rather than in specific parts of the community, because your housing element sites are concentrated for good reasons, climate, close to transportation, close to the downtown area where jobs are. This was a big sticking point with HCD. To make sure that housing units could be created throughout the community by implementing a few additional policies and actions. I want to mention that city staff did negotiate with HCD on these types of programs and to settle on programs that really would be feasible to implement and to carry out. And they were actually directed by HCD, the programs that were adopted. The second and third buckets are really pretty minor, and they have to do with legal requirements. But the second one is the finding of, in the City Council's resolution adopting the housing element update, that over 50% of the lower income units as part of your housing mandate are on sites that are not vacant. And so there needs to be a statement made in the resolution saying that every jurisdiction where this is the case, that's what they have to do. So it was sort of a reminder from HCD that that had to be done. And then thirdly, there was a portion of the Sites Inventory Chapter 7 where we clarified some language to restate what had already been stated, but in a different way on sites used in previous housing elements. This next slide provides more specifics on those edits. So specifically in Chapter 7, which is the Sites Inventory chapter, language was added to restate that Site 38 as part of your sixth cycle had been included in a previous housing element, but did not involve lower income units, so didn't trigger any sort of legal requirements with regard to using a site a second time. And then in Chapter 8, which is the housing plan, and in Appendix B, which is the fair housing section, there were additions only to program HB 55, which again is that housing mobility issue that we spoke about with HCD. The first, and a couple of these you'll see are related to state housing laws that have recently passed since we first drafted the housing element and sent it to HCD in 2022. One of those is to facilitate housing on sites affiliated with religious institutions or faith-based organizations. There was a bill passed with the moniker Yes in God's Backyard, which basically allows churches and religious institutions who own their property to build housing by right. So that's a state mandate over the whole state. And so that's been included as part of the housing element. Also to identify potential sites in a general sense outside of the downtown area that also meet transit-rich area and urban infill requirements. Work with 21 Elements, the consortium in San Mateo County, to develop pre-approved ADU plans. Again, that was a law that was passed and took effect in January that jurisdictions do have to adopt some pre-approved ADU plans to encourage ADUs in the community. And then work with 21 Elements on the ADU Resource Center website. Also to amend the ADU ordinance to allow 2 JADUs per single family residence if the property owner should wish to do that. This in particular was something that was negotiated back and forth several times. This was, I'll just put in the way I understood it, this is a requirement that HCD required the city to include this program due to the fact that the sites in the housing element, again, for very good reasons, but were many of them located in the downtown area. And so this was for that housing mobility to create units outside of the downtown area. Missing middle housing and housing mobility education, a conversion of short-term hosted rentals to JADUs, an amnesty program to be in compliance with the new MTC TOC policy, a link on the city's affordable housing webpage to the 21 Elements website for information and resources on housing, and then finally, agreement to do a mid-cycle housing element review, which in our experience, many jurisdictions have been asked to do this. And with that, that concludes the presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Hida. Any questions for our staff and the council? Ms. Pappen.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and appreciate all the hard work and effort that went into this over 2+ years. What was the cost to the city of Millbrae in compliance or achieving this goal?
Hida, do you remember the total contract amount off the top of your head? I do not.
I do not remember. I can't give you an exact number. If you give me a few minutes, I could probably take a look at our contract. But my recollection is it was somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000.
So not a small chunk of change that the cities expend in trying to comply here. And this is a living, breathing document, is that correct?
I would.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Andy. You go ahead.
Go ahead. It's all right.
I was going to say, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a living, breathing document. There are implementation measures the city does need to take over the 8-year period. But what has been established in your housing plan is really the plan moving forward, and probably is not subject to change unless the housing element were to be amended.
Yeah, we're not trying to amend anything, believe me. The compliance, of course, is ongoing, and we are excited, and we firmly believe in the affordability aspect of this because of the cost of living. Can you define how do we define low and extra low at this point in time?
That's a good question. Very low and low income is actually defined in the Health and Safety Code, and it has to do with area median income. So very low income would be 50% of the San Mateo County area median income or less, and low income would be 80% of the San Mateo County area median income or average income or less.
Okay, that's something, thank you for that definition, I appreciate it. It's something that becomes very difficult as to affordability here. So I really appreciate everything the city's doing to try to help people as to affordability. I would like us to, not in here, we're very excited just to get this moving ahead here, but I think we should look at when applications come in, freezing that. It should be at that point in time. The area median income is locked in because it seems to grow at an exceptionally high rate. So if we are able to do that instead of waiting for occupancy or whatever, we need to try to get some control over that ever growing number. So if we can do that as a city, I think we would set a nice example. And again, this whole council is very concerned about affordability. So kind of as a final question here, it was very disappointing for us to hear that the Housing Leadership Group kind of was working against us in all of this. Do we know if they had any impact instead of supporting us in all these great efforts? Did their efforts interfere with our goal today? Does anyone have any information on that?
They did not.
So,
Yeah, we've not received any comments through this public comment period, and it had no effect on the housing element either way.
in other words, the letter they wrote to the state,
The state dismissed the letter. They did acknowledge it, but they dismissed it.
and that was critical of our 488 approved housing units, which we asked them to support. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
So, and for the public's knowledge, we have 488 units that are approved right by the BART station, and we asked for support from housing leadership. Instead, they wrote to the state critical of those units. But we look forward to them proceeding, and I do appreciate everything that's, all the work that went into this. It's very exciting to know that we've achieved the goal here. So thank you very much, and we look forward to moving forward and focusing on the job at hand, providing these housing units, and the more affordable, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pappen. Councilmember Schneider, please.
Congratulations to all staff, city manager. I know how huge this is and how much time it has taken from other work like tree ordinances. Okay, it was interesting to read the details of how they replied back to various elements and how far back. So a lot of mine were kind of like what they wrote to us last June and how much work has happened since June. So bear with me here. I understand that they've taken down a few number of units. It's really not worth it, but I'm interested in HIP 59, which is what they wanted, an inclusion of the east side, which we've covered by talking about the east side specific plan, because those neighborhoods within the east side, it looks like HCD now recognizes that they live with some environmental disadvantages. So I'm glad to see that there. I don't know if there's really a question there. I would love to hear more when we've got some time on that. On attachment 3 of the document set out in tonight's agenda item, page 6, there's a large element about people with mobility issues. And believe me, how hard it is for me to get up and down a stairway right now. I really get mobility issues. And it reminded me of a woman we have been trying to help for several years, who lives on the condominiums on Murchison. They're 3 or 4 story buildings, and the property, it's an HOA, but they haven't maintained the elevators. And there's an elderly woman on the top floor. So HCD seems to want us to really work on mobility, but do we have the power to hold a landowner responsible for maintaining their elevators? Will this give us that power?
They're required to maintain their elevators. That is a Fair Housing Act problem, and it needs to be addressed.
Okay, so just be aware that at least those really nice condominiums right on Murchison, south of Millbrae Avenue, I had a couple of years of work with them. Then it goes on in the same attachment, page 8, on lot consolidation. Now, it was my understanding that the city had the ability, or a better ability, to do lot consolidation when we had the redevelopment agency, but that's gone. So I kind of read that and I said, well, that's great, HCD, you're asking for this, but do we have the power? I mean, they want us to encourage it, so what do? Wave a magic wand?
Yeah. Tom, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, so redevelopment law, that's something that I speak every day. I wish the state legislature would take up again. But to your point, I think the council adopted, and it's an element or a section in the housing element, to how do we incentivize that? Because we do not have any power to do that other than incentivize. And our local density bonus ordinance is the incentivized tool in the housing element to do that.
And that's that additional thing that we're working on right now?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Actually,
That's right.
Andy and Heater are both working on that ordinance to bring it back to the council, which is an implementation measure in the housing element.
And again, if you can give it to me, given the policy committee, I'm not on that policy with Cal Cities, but I'll go straight to the housing lobbyist and make sure that we're getting that kind of credit. So yay, good to hear that. Then it goes into HIP 28, displacement. In our negotiations with HCD, recognize that we tried to maintain the people in the 8 units that are going to be lost at the El Rancho project, and we tried to give them, for want of a better term, first dibs on the low affordable units going into the El Rancho or the Anton apartments, but we didn't do it, or we couldn't do it because of SB 330. So how can HCD hold us accountable for displacement, which I believe in, but then we don't have the tools to protect our current residents and keep them here in Millbrae? What can we do for that? Or do we need to do more for that?
Wow, that's a complicated question.
Then I don't want to hold it up. I want to pass this, yay.
Just
but
so you know, there's existing laws that require, even before this, existing laws that require relocation of people in affordable housing units to an equal or better housing unit in a displacement situation.
Okay.
So there's laws that already exist for that.
But we seem to have really hit loggerhead when it came to the Anton apartments, having lived in Mountain View where they have a very developed program on this and they hold everybody accountable. Let's just keep it on I hate to put it on our goals. I would love to get back to doing something other than housing on our goals, but that concerns me that they talk a lot about it in their comment letters. But 330 stopped us from being able to do it. Moving on to attachment 4, page 8. I wasn't sure where Sarah Station, attachment 8 is attachment 4 is the chart on page 8, and I'm reading that, and was it alluding to Sarah Station? On the site, well, it's not site 38, but I was a little confused there. I just want to make sure I can tell the right story.
I do not have attachment.
I can pull it up
for
for me.
There's some, but Hita, do you have that in front of you by any chance?
I do not.
Thanks. Oh, appreciate it. Yeah. So, this was related to the finding regarding non-vacant sites.
Correct.
That would have been one of them, but it's not specific to that particular one. We have lots of non-vacant sites.
I guess my question is Sarah Station, is that part of the previous housing element, or will it count in the current housing element?
I believe we only had one site, if I'm not mistaken, Hita, that was from the previous. Is that right?
That's correct. So if development happens during this cycle, it will count in this cycle.
Very good. So if high-speed rail gets out of the way, we can build those 488 units that Councilwoman Pappen mentioned. And then my last credit, and I'm sorry, I brought it up to the city manager earlier today, reading the Airport Land Use Council, it is all accurate as of right now. But be aware that we have been working with the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, to change the measurements of noise. And right now, only 3 homes in Millbrae fit within the 65 decibel. But if they consider low frequency noise, that may change. It's going to be 2-3 years down the line, earliest, but just be aware of that. I don't want to hold it up here, but that would open the doorway, especially for the East Side specific plan, to look at if they were currently counting the noise, which they should, but they don't, because FAA does not count noise in back of runways. And we need to make sure that HCD understands that we are almost unique worldwide in that situation, and Millbrae is unique in that. So otherwise, I thought this was fantastic. Where is Site 38? And you can tell me later. These were the things that were curious. I'm just so happy. I'm so happy and grateful that we're getting through this. But I do think, I don't want to push HCD, but again, how can they do lot consolidation and not have the tools to do it? Don't worry, Andy, don't worry. Tell me later.
Yeah, you can probably get back to Council
Thank you.
Councilmember Schneider
Mayor.
afterwards. Anyone else would have any questions or comment for our Director Mogensen? Ms. Garrett?
I don't have any questions. I just want to thank and congratulate staff and everyone that worked on this, the past council, current council. It's taken a lot of work, and I just really want to congratulate and thank everyone. I also want to thank Hita. I remember early on, before I was even thinking of running for council, attending meetings and learning about housing elements and all the components. And you were a great educator and very patient with people on those meetings as we all, the public, learned about these issues and how housing elements work. So allowed for great community participation. So thank you. I know Councilmember Pappen asked about the cost of the contract, but I think we can also look at the amount of staff time and what that goes into creating our housing element and the impact that has on our cities. So thank you very much.
Okay, all right. Any further comment, questions? All right, so.
Where's the party?
Hold on. So opening public hearing, I don't have any speaker slip. Elaine, do we have anybody online? I don't see it.
We do not.
Okay, thank you. So we're closing public comment. Bring it back to the council. I just wanted to thank the Millbrae Community Development staff and our consultant, Hita, who is on the call tonight, for their hard work and the tenacity to work through all the challenges throughout the last couple of years, working with HCD to finally getting to the point where we're ready to get certifications. So for the benefit of the public, this demonstrates our steadfast commitment as a city to becoming a collaborative and respectful regional partner by bringing housing opportunities to families, to seniors, to veterans, and everyone who wants to call Millbrae home. And we're serious about it, and we're committed to that effort. So with that said, tonight, I'd like to make the motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Councilwoman Pappen.
You need to close public.
I did already, a moment ago. I did that a moment ago. I closed the public comment. So with that, we have a motion and a second. You have a final comment?
Yeah, a final comment too. I'd like to thank our state representatives, our assembly member and senators for helping us work with HCD because it's been a difficult process for a lot of cities. So we appreciate all their efforts. The city staff will tell you, it's not an easy thing dealing with them, but we are very excited about this. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that comment and that suggestion. So with that said, Ms. Tran.
Councilmember Snyder.
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen.
Yes.
Councilmember Cahalan.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman.
Aye.
Mayor Funk.
Aye.
Item number 10 passed by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say a few words. Congratulations.
Mr. City Manager, yes.
Obviously to the staff. Andy and Hita, of course, just did amazing work for us. And as mentioned, the entire team. This is a big deal. It kind of feels like when you get married, where you do all the planning.
2 years of dating.
Event, and then it happens like, oh, wow. But this is a big deal.
Yeah,
This is a huge deal, and not very many cities have accomplished this. And so that letter that we received is gold to municipalities, and I'm proud of all the great work and collaboration that was done. So thank you also.
We don't have anybody inquiring about builder's remedy, right? No, never.
Never did.
Not non-issue now.
Not an issue.
But also the many study sessions with the council, late nights as we got into it. So just thank you and congratulations to everyone. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you, Director. All right, so we're moving on to existing business number, item 11. Update of the El Camino Real Millbrae Avenue Landscape Median Improvement Project. Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd just like to introduce our Director of Engineering and Public Works, Mr. Sam Batista.
Director Batista.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. Sam Bautista, your Director of Public Works and Engineering. So several weeks ago, Council participated in a design charrette and provided the city's consultant with feedback to develop the next stage of the El Camino Real Median Improvement Project. From the design charrette, NCE will present concepts that were developed to create a sense of place and identity. Preferred concepts are a place in the sun and Grand Boulevard, and the preferred inspirations came from sounds to music and migration. The team would like to receive feedback tonight regarding the pedestrian barrier concept, gateways, tree selection, ground cover, and design details. And let me introduce you to Charles DeVilliers and Matthew Gaber of NCE
to present the latest concepts of the El Camino medians.
Good evening. Yeah, so we've been busy since we saw you guys last, taking your suggestions and working through some different ideas, and we're excited about what we're presenting and definitely curious to hear what you guys think as well. Next slide, please. So just to recap, just kind of the overview of the medians here, we've kind of got these three primary areas that we have outlined, where we have the gateways. These are the areas highlighted in red there. These are where we really want to make a statement. It's kind of the front door of the city on both ends of El Camino. There are a number of utility conflicts, and the narrow medians constrain tree planting options. There's the existing monument on the north end, and opportunity for more of those, or more of that kind of emphasis. We'd like to see lots of lighting and potentially things like banners there as well. In the blue zone there, we have this transition, in the green zone there, we have the transition area. We see shorter medians, there's more utility conflicts there, and constraints for tree planting. We'd like to see some lighting, and there's some options that we could see for banners there. And then that blue area kind of highlights the midtown. This is around the area where we have the living spaces and all of the other shopping areas there. This is something where we also have a really good opportunity for making a statement, and we'd like it to look lush, have trees there. And in an effort to kind of understand the scale of this whole area, we calculated the length is about 25 football fields there. So perhaps that can give one a sense of just how much distance they're covering, and some of the complexities in designing for this length. The average width of the medians is 6 foot. They are commonly about 4 foot at the narrowest, and then the widest they're around 15 foot with transition areas in between. Lastly, the gateways, again, are really these very powerful areas that we have. And so we are going to show you kind of a design where we have this sort of concept, like this ribbon that sort of ties everything together. Next slide, please. These are some of the images that were popular with during the design charrette. This motion, this fluid movement. We have the sound waves on the left there. This idea of the sound to music in line with that kind of informal slogan of the City of Festivals, and creating something that is really both attractive, but also kind of fits that fluid concept there. Next slide, please. These were a few of the precedent images as well that seemed to be popular. And just looking at opportunities we have for the barriers, as well as just kind of this rhythmic fluid motion going through there, ways that we can experience lighting as well. Next, please. And this is just a brief outline of the toolkit that we had, and just kind of narrowing that down to some of the key things that we've selected, such as the form of the trees, that the trees will be evergreen, and then also looking at some of the species that we've been in contact with an arborist about. Next slide. For the ground covers, we're not wanting to see shrubs and things that could impede visibility, so we're sticking with ground covers, things that are low, things that are easy to maintain. So we've been looking at a few different species there, also looking at how those can contribute to the fluid motion and be part of the design. Next slide. These are a few different examples of how lighting might look in that area. Particularly on the right there, we have the tree lights, which is a really inexpensive, effective way to bring some character to the street, especially around areas like the gateways and where we have commercial use as well, and where we'll have a lot more pedestrian traffic. And then you can also see lights on things like barriers, how that could sort of play with the pedestrian barriers, which we're about to show and which you saw on a little bit of on the front slide there. Next slide. This is just kind of a reminder of the existing signage that we have, that we've already got this catalog we can draw from, that we can implement more of these inexpensively. The design work has been done, so we can take some of these ideas and replicate them throughout the median. Next slide. This is just looking at kind of at some of the core materials we have, some of the options that we have to use. We've got the galvanized steel, stainless steel, and Corten there on the left side that are kind of tough and easy to manipulate the shape of. And then on the right, we've got kind of just an example of some of the different types of rocks that we can use as well in terms of sizing and the effects. And on the next slide, this is where we kind of started to look at preliminary design. So this was kind of an early concept and looking at how we could have visibility so that when you're looking across at this barrier, it's not looking like this heavy, distracting thing in the way, but then as you're driving past it, it can create this interesting wave motion. So these were kind of series of vertical posts and, that would kind of look solid from certain angles and then look transparent when you're looking at them from, the sidewalk or right next to them. Next slide. We evolved this a little bit into a different idea where we're looking at, okay, how can we get motion through a static object, playing with the different shapes and forms and the way that it waves through there, how when you're driving past, the areas that are transparent kind of play off of the width of those panels there, and it kind of appears to move as you go past it. Next slide. Then to kind of simplify, we really were looking at the length that we have here. It's, 2 mile stretch. We've got a lot of this to replicate. So, maybe going back to this idea of rhythm and sound, going to this kind of wave idea. So this was sort of some of the early exploration of the waves. And then on the next slide, you can see, took this idea and made it a little bit more interesting. Next slide. Here we can kind of see an example of what that might look like throughout this would be throughout the middle medians, so everything except for the gateways, where this particular example here is not a final rendering of what exactly it could, but it's showing you an example of what it could be, the different options that we have. We have different ways that we can play with the height and widths, and we have this kind of fairly simple framework that we can replicate and kind of get playful with. And so it really has a sculptural quality. There would be some tension cables that would prevent people from walking through it. That will be almost invisible as you're driving past or even as you're looking at it from the sidewalk. I think it kind of creates this fun rhythm going through there that's really unique. It would definitely set Millbrae apart from the surrounding cities. Next slide. This is just looking at ways that those waves there can be modified, and Matthew will take it from here.
Good evening. It's very exciting. So taking the original idea of the wave, we started to really get down into the nitty-gritty of it and looking at the different heights, the frequency of that wave. And because this is going to be, as Charles mentioned, we've got probably 5,000 plus more lineal feet of this. And so how do we create some visual interest? How do we do it, though, it's going to be affordable? And looking at this, too, as a modular system that could be replicated throughout maybe the city, other places, out in front of City Hall, in parks, and that it would be something that if somebody does happen to drive into the median and hit it, it'd be very simple to replicate it and get a new piece. And you could get the contractor to give you, 10 extra pieces just in lieu of that happening. The other thing that this is really focused on is that it sits lightly on the ground. As Charles had mentioned, there's a whole maze of utilities out there, electrical, there's a 60-inch water line going through there, there's telecom. So whatever we put in there is going to have a light touch, a footprint to it. And each one of these, at the trough of those arcs, would just sit on a very simple round concrete footing. So it's a very light touch, doesn't cost a lot to install. There's a lot of variability. I kind of got down in the weeds with this but I was just looking at all the opportunities for varying it, and I came up with 75 options. And so after that, it's time definitely to stop drinking coffee, narrow it down. So here you see a bunch of options. Next slide. Then the next thing we looked at, and Charles was alluding to this, is this idea of scale. How many football fields, it's long, what do you see as you're going along the road? I picked the average speed of about 40 miles an hour. We test drove that this evening. It might be a little faster, but the idea that when you're going 40 miles per hour, 60 feet, you go 60 feet, that's 1 second. So think about that. That's the width of an average suburban house lot. So every second you're going by that. So that really started to inform how these waves should be, how the frequency of them, the size of them, the shape of them. And you can see right here, there's a series of studies too. There's a car there for reference. We're planning for most of these waves just to be 4 feet. And that is going to be for pretty much the entirety of the project. It's only at the gateways, which you see on your cover of your presentation, where it gets really big. And that gets into that issue of scale, statement when you come into the city. The rest of it is going to be more subtle and elegant going down the road. Next slide. So going back just a little bit, when we started looking at the gateways, one of our initial ideas is what you see right here. And this was the idea of using concrete, taking those waves and trying to turn them on their side and trying to do them vertically. And the feeling that we got out of this was that it was pretty heavy. It was going to be expensive. That when you're putting a concrete wall on top of the utilities, telecom, you name it, you really have to design a special foundation system. And it also felt just kind of normative, that you might see this at a lot of different places, and it really didn't strike us as being very unique. And so taking those ideas, we took it to the next step. Next picture, please. And that's where we ended up with this concept. Once again, just want to reiterate, this would be at the gateways. So your northern gateway up by Santa Lucia, then at Millbrae Avenue, and so at El Camino at Millbrae, and then on Millbrae Avenue, we would try to integrate something there too. It's pretty constrained because of the existing trees. There's not a lot of room to work with. At El Camino and Millbrae, on El Camino, there's a lot of room. The really long, skinny median right there. There's a lot of space for us to play with. Key features are, once again, we're taking an existing gateway sign, and that whole vocabulary, you have a signage and wayfinding elements, and we're just building upon that. We want this to feel that it's part of that. So the wave ribbon is the same color. Materials will be similar to it. It's all going to be metal. What we currently envision that this is just a tubular piece of steel. It's very easy to manipulate, to bend them in different shapes, to make them swing out and back and forth. And then the panels in between, it could be metal, they could be art pieces, they could just be cables, but there's a lot of flexibility there too. And that could alter, depending on the location, what you're trying to say at those different locations. And why don't we switch to the next slide, please? And so once again, here's more studies of those, just giving you a sense of the scale. Once again, at the entry, it's going to be big, and that's because we want to make a statement. If you look at the top left image, you'll start to see where it transitions down to the 4-foot wave barrier that you're going to see consistently throughout the project. Next slide. And then, so the next step is we've actually now gone into AutoCAD, and that's the software we use to draw everything. I'm starting to look at this in great detail. Exactly where the trees are going to be located, where those entry monuments are going to be located. We've got all the utilities mapped in here, and so all the trees are set, have different setbacks depending on the utilities to how close we can get them, how the spacing of the tree aligns with the ribbon going through those spaces, the type of tree. that we're using. Some of the trees we have are very columnar in character, others are more broad canopy. That's something that we envision integrating with the ribbon throughout there, that could change too. Charles mentioned, we're looking at just using evergreen trees. One of the major reasons for using evergreen trees is because they grow when we're naturally having water, whereas deciduous trees are used to growing during the summer when they have water. So based on the whole concept of creating a very sustainable, xerophytic landscape, that makes a lot of sense to use evergreen trees. And also it's a potential for blocking more sound. And also one other reason is that the leaf drop is with deciduous trees, your leaf drop could be all in space of a month. That's the kind of thing that drives that guy crazy over there because it just clogs all your storm drains. And so that's another reason for using the evergreen trees. Down at the bottom, you can see that's one of the typical medians. You can see the wave, how the wave is shown in plan view with the different ground covers, how you've got the wave of the ribbon going through there, and how the trees are all aligned through there too. So it's a very, you had mentioned that you're interested in a very linear expression, and so that's what the trees are doing. But to introduce a variety, you have this ribbon, which move around. Next slide. And then here, to get into even more detail, this shows a versatility, once again, of the ribbon, that you have these spaces in between. One of the things that you had mentioned was the interest of having, the idea of having art integrated. So each one of these panels could be an art piece. And there's a couple of images. It could be as simple as just having some perforated metal that's got a unique pattern. It could have the city's logo. It could be like a sun pattern that represents the city's logo too, each of those panels. They could be, you see a project right there where it's this custom metal art panel. You can put images onto metal too. We did shy away from using a lot of solid metal panels because some of the original image we showed you had these vertical metal walls. And the feeling about that was they unfortunately might be objects that get tagged. So having something that was more open, like as a very simple metal mesh, or having the cables, it's not going to be hard for people to tag. Just a couple of other things. The cables are intended to be very subtle. We drove around, looked at other barriers. We didn't want this to be something that's really very aggressive. We wanted this to be a very subtle deterrent to people, something that has a utilitarian is utilitarian, it's easily reproduced, but also is very aesthetically interesting, captivating. And so that is the end of our presentation. Love for your feedback, input, questions, suggestions. There is a preliminary, and I'd like to emphasize preliminary cost estimate included in this. And obviously those prices are going to be evolve as the design evolves. You'll see that we're just above the $5 million budget that you gave us. A couple of things I'd like to point out, that there's a 30% contingency as part of that. It's a pretty, we do that on our projects. And that allows for anything that might come up during the course of the construction. One example of that would be is that when we were out there digging in the medians, we found a lot of different subsurface conditions. We found some areas where the curb was just built right on the existing roadway. So that would mean that when you're excavating there, you have to take out the roadway that's within the median. So that's an unknown condition which could affect the cost of the project. Another cost is going to be the demolition and removal. Removal of the trees, it's a pretty standard process. It's when we start to remove the soils. And that starts to add up. It also affects how much topsoil, new soil we bring back in. We're going to continue to do more soil testing, but depending on the quality and the character of the soil, we might need to bring in more just to make it more viable for the trees. So once again, and then another factor will be just how detailed we make ribbons be. Very simple one, just the cables through it. That's pretty cost effective, easily replicated project. Gateways, and we have a separate price in there for two costs. One is just for the whole project. That's the first part of the cost estimate. Second is for just the gateway, the northern gateway, and southern, excuse me, I always get it. The southern gateway and the through the living spaces. So that stretch of the road. So look forward to your questions,
Okay.
suggestions.
Thank you for the presentation. It's quite detailed. Obviously, there's a lot of information here as well that probably would benefit all of us to take some time to digest. But I'd like to get started with some council questions as we begin, and then we'll take some public comment. I think we have some hand raised here, and then we can come back for some final thoughts and discussions. Anyone wants to ask any questions for our consultant here?
Like, if other people have it, I'm happy to follow.
So you don't have anything at the moment? You do? Okay, so go ahead, please, Ms. Schneider. I mean, I'm just looking for a hand raise here.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm really happy that we have Terrence here. He's on our Millbrae Community Enhancement Advisory Committee, and he's a landscape architect. And he is part of our team under that program to look at California natives, drought tolerant, and things like that. So that brings me to, these are not page numbered, where you've got the sample trees on here. To me, none of them look like California natives. I don't know my magnolias though. So were we going to try to look at natives along with trying to go for evergreens versus deciduous?
Yeah, the trees that you see there are based on our climate changing. And so that what's happening is a lot of the trees that you might originally planted here, the tree species are actually migrating north.
Now, understood. But Quercus virginiana is probably an East Coast tree?
Those probably, I don't know, are they?
If I remember my nomenclature.
Yeah, and so the use of the trees, it's, if we're doing like a restoration project, or even a park project for you, it's like all the oak trees that you have on your greenways and your trails. We would definitely do that. This is a unique context where you have extremely
Limited space. So you're picking trees that have a particular form and that can do well as a street tree, knowing that street trees have a very difficult life.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Like an oak tree, like the California live oak, beautiful tree. The problem is the branches are really low and they're going to get hit by trucks.
Okay.
That was one of the maintenance departments, one of the first things that they said to us, please select trees that are not going to have low-hanging branches. It's a maintenance problem for us, and then it's a liability of trucks hitting those branches.
Okay. I mean, hopefully we keep the trees alive and they get big and they're doing their purpose. City Manager, I think what would make me feel more comfortable is as we move forward that we have more information about the trees. What they do, what they can, what their shapes are going to be. We don't like our current magnolias because they lift up a sidewalk, but apparently there is a magnolia that's roots are not as ground surface. So we really do want to it shouldn't necessarily be at our level, but we need to know if we're approving trees that they're going to do the right job for that. In the staff report, you talked about the project that I think most of us voted for, which was to eliminate all trees. But we do have some sections where the trees are linear. I'll tell you the other part I love the kind of wall. I don't think it's going to keep people from crossing mid-block, so that's another question. But I would like to see if we could try to save the redwoods. Some of them are not the ones that are really sick, but there's a couple that to me look really good. Now, you've done the soil survey, so you know what's underneath them. I really don't like the idea of cutting down every tree all at once, making us very bare. for a very long time before these trees get established. So that's kind of my thing on trees. In terms of the ground covers, they're all beautiful. The ground covers with rock gives it that natural feeling. However, with so many people crossing mid-block, these plants are going to get trampled unless for a very long time, or unless we fill them with some shrubs that are low enough that people can see over them, but tall enough that people won't climb on them. I think it's going to look as dilapidated in a short period of time because people, we've seen it at our rec center, beautiful brand new plants, and I'll stand there and they'll know I'm an elected official and they'll step on a plant. They won't walk around it, they'll step right on it. So I just worry that if we're going to spend this money, that we're going to have a method to not kill these plants as they're getting started. Lighting, deal with that. I don't like gravel. Sadly, Millbrae's forefathers, we have a lot of front yards with river rock, you know, that red, horrible looking stuff. I would prefer river rocks, that's my preference, than doing a gravel look. It just has, to me, a cleaner, more satisfying, but I like curves over angles. I'm concerned, whatever the shape, with our wind and any cutout of metal. Do we know with our wind, will it create that? We've got data on that, engineering data that say we won't create our own little symphony or dichophony.
Do you mind if I clarify the whole? So
Sure.
Imagine you've got a steel pipe, okay? And it just bends, goes down and up like that. And what's keeping people from walking through are the cables. So.
See, and the cables aren't in the drawing, right?
We do, exactly.
Unless this one.
Exactly, okay?
So there are cables running this way, but they're not going to be really noticeable. Got it.
Exactly. But
Okay.
that's the whole point. It's going to be probably, you know.
Because I will tell you, I really like this.
Well,
I think this looks really pretty.
That's what you're really going to see.
Okay.
And so the idea is that, you know, we have to think about costs, that we've got a mile and a half of this to do. And
Okay.
we still want to create a state.
If it will keep people from walking mid-block, then that's okay.
Cables are going to prevent that, and we did a whole bunch of different studies about the different type of, do we put panels in there? Do we put rods of steel? And the idea was just the cables, because they're very simple, very elegant, and they're going to stop people from walking through.
Okay, I'm happy. They might also have some plants growing up on them, depending on what the plantings are,
Potentially. So
which is, I think, what Gateway was going to do on Rollins Road, but it's not there yet. But isn't that the intent for the wiring going across on Rollins Road North, to have plants, which again will keep people from, once they're established?
Yeah, so to get to the planting, once again, it was very focused on what's going to be the most durable plants.
Okay.
What are the most durable trees? And we've consulted with our arborist who works on projects throughout Northern California, works on projects for Google. And these trees are her recommendations, and it's also based on my professional experience too, of what type of trees are really going to do well in that area.
Okay.
And looking at, you know, these medians, the biggest living tree plants in the world are redwood trees. And putting a redwood tree in a 15-foot wide space with a 60-inch diameter water supply line is
Number one tree for absorbing carbon, and amongst the top trees for noise absorption. And I don't know the noise absorption of these trees. I would have to go back and look them up. But noise is a real thing for us. So I see the balance. The linear aspect of this, I thought that when we did the design charrette, that linear was not where most of us were going. The reason I'm looking at this, and actually it looks quite nice, but it's a drawing. And we have cars that hit 60 miles an hour on El Camino Real. And when you have linear, it simply makes it look like, wow, I can drive down El Camino really fast, versus a little bit of fluidity, which might give our drivers a sense that they better slow down. But right now, this particular page is very linear on that. Is there a way that the same metal thing it's articulating this way, can it also articulate that way within the cost parameters?
exactly.
Okay, so if we can get a little bit away from the linear, because to me, straight lines mean speed. And speed is how we're getting people killed on El Camino Real. So on that, and then I think I'm almost done. If you had my druthers, it's the 4-foot-high ribbon with a frequency changing periodically, instead of too much disruption here. And then too much similarity there.
Okay.
That's what it feels like when the airplanes are taking off at my house at night, so. I actually do like this one, but not concrete. The gateway ones, yeah, it'd be interesting to see it with the lines, maybe a sample, if this moves forward for the public who's not quite sure that we should be spending money. If there's a sample, a real physical sample, we could bring and put up in front of City Hall and people can see it. I grew up in Pacifica. If you know Terra Nova High School, it was built in the 60s. That's what that looks like to me. Don't like it. But this other stuff is interesting. Again, I was worried about the sound, and I haven't looked at the cost. So, it's scary because there's a lot of people out there that are not happy with us spending money, but I think they can't see that the effort that we put into this, the facelift that we're giving us, the fact that we'll stop people walking mid-block and will save people's lives, including our own residents' lives and our own animal lives, our dogs. We had a dog killed at Hillcrest, so care about our puppies here, that it's worth the investment in here. But we're going to have to sell it. We're going to have to make the case. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Schneider. All right, so Councilwoman Cahalan, let's make sure we're even, stay on point here.
Thank you so much for all of the work and the vision and creativity. This is some of the fun work we get to do. I just had a couple of comments and questions. I think with the rocks, I agree. I can picture just people crossing midway, and especially the smaller size rocks getting kicked into the street.
May I clarify that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the images we showed was arranged. What the idea
Got
is that there wouldn't be loose gravel like that because it gets kicked around, exactly what you're talking about. People would pick it up and throw it. And it wouldn't be cobbles either, because the cobbles they're round, and there's a lot of gaps between them, and they're also really, you see those everywhere. You could use those, but the idea is actually to use stones that are about 1 foot diameter. So this would give you a much different idea, your expression too. And the idea too is that they're bigger, they're rougher, you can't walk across them. You could walk in cobbles, you see everywhere. Usually there's cement in place. You're going to walk right across those. Those aren't going to slow you down. And we have a lot of areas where you have those long, narrow noses, and we have sight distance issues there, because we don't want to run the ribbon or some barrier all the way to the intersection. That's what you have over here in the new development, and that is a safety hazard. No firms have gotten sued because they put those in there. You don't see the pedestrians coming, you don't see a car turning, it blocks your views. So for the narrow portions, 50 feet back from the intersection is just going to be these rocks. And they're going to be a bit bigger, so they're hard to walk across. And we, put a lot of thought into how do we deter people from jaywalking in those areas. And so that was the idea. The image probably isn't conveying the concept as successfully as it could.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know I've heard some of our public works folks talk about kind of barriers you can put in the ground to keep roots, like to force roots to go down and keep them from coming up in the roads. Are those things that would be used in this project?
You can use those. As to whether they're really successful or not is up for debate. I've seen a lot of those where the tree roots just go under and they push it up. And so it's actually what the trees are doing is they're searching for water. They want air. So if you provide water where they need it and want it, deep root watering system, so you basically have a perforated pipe that's filled with gravel and water goes down there. The trees are very happy because they're getting water where they want. They're not reaching out laterally to try and get water from under the pavement or wherever. So it's really, and this gets back into the whole selection of the species. What trees are going to have, trees behave differently. They have different types of root systems. All trees, you think about a tree, you've got this vertical element. It's huge mass. Just think of branches like a baseball bat that falls on your head. It gives you a sense of how much just the branches are. So you have this huge mass. And the trees are spreading their roots out just to stabilize themselves. So, thinking once again, you want a tree that's not going to lift up your pavement. You should pick a tree that's well-sized for the amount of soil volume, air that they can get in those areas. So, sorry, that was a long answer. But in a lot of the places, you already have a deep curb. It was 16 inches plus in depth, and roots really aren't going to go down much more than that. So you've got a natural barrier already. We're also trying to prevent a lot of materials like plastic, which aren't biodegradable. They have a very big environmental impact to them. And so that's why we're using metal, stone, natural materials. That's why we don't have a lot of concrete out there too. Sorry, long answer.
No, great, thank you. It's very helpful. And I think just my last comment, I think it's very beautiful, very creative. I think it'll definitely meet the goal of helping Millbrae stand out as people are going down El Camino. But just one possibility as we think about, costs, if we need to watch those, could we have the waves, well, we probably could, have the waves range between like 2 feet and 4 feet. So in some areas it's lower and then less metal, and maintaining the creativity, the design, the concept, but, maybe managing costs a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the 4 foot was just looking at, some people are going to go over a 3 foot fence.
Yeah, that's true.
And so, your dais is probably just short of 3 feet. A lot of people they're not going to be deterred by that. So going to 4 feet, what we could do is maybe the arch comes up to 4 feet, so you get that, and then the cable's down a little bit lower. So you're still, telling, ultimately, someone wants to go across the street, they're going to go across. But what we're trying to do is make it so that 90% of the people say, you know what, I'm going to walk down to the signal and cross there.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. Councilwoman Pappen and then the Vice Mayor.
Thank you very much. A few things here that you mentioned. We are interested in lighting, and we've noted the wind multiple times here. So whatever, we don't want you coming back going, oh, well, we didn't know. So as long as we're clear on that. You mentioned the utilities. Where are you getting that information? Is it accurate? There's a lot of old stuff, and El Camino has been redone multiple times. So is this permanent utility stuff, or is this just old stuff nobody's taken out? Do you have that information?
Absolutely. So we had 2 different types of surveys performed. So we had a surface survey, which is, you've probably seen the guys out there go to the pole and they take shots. They picked up all the utilities you could see on the surface. So like all the electrical boxes and manholes, all of those were picked up. Then we had another surveyor come out, another company, and they use ground penetrating radar. What they can do is they can go down into the ground and they will pick up what utilities are underground. So we have all that documented too. That's how we know where all the electrical lines are, not just connecting a dot between here's a vault and here's a vault. Maybe there's something in between. We have exact information that shows exactly where they are, what type of utilities they are, and then who the utility providers are. Part of the background research we did was we reached out to all the different utility providers, SFPUC, AT&T, and got from them what their requirements were for setbacks, what their preferences were. So that's another reason why, you see the trees in these linear lines. It's really because of the utilities, because there's a telecom line down the middle, and we have to keep set back, and those lines don't Sometimes they're in the middle, sometimes they're 3 feet off the curb, sometimes they kind of jog. And so it's really, the tree planting is really a function of constraints by the utilities.
Okay, I just want to, it's a very complicated world under there.
Yes.
So we just want to make sure there's not garbage that these companies are just hanging on to that are not active. And sometimes they're not very transparent about that. So if we can make sure that happens, that would be great. In addition to here, the picture actually you have up right now. I understand that to me doesn't flow. I understand we have the logo and we put a lot into this design stuff, but you've got a square and then you've got curves flowing here. And the color is not something I would say is natural. It's not blending to me. I understand what you're trying to do here, but if you go back to your little toolkit with trees, it looks very natural, nice. And yes, we wanted to make a statement about Millbrae, but I think we're getting a little too cluttered in the presentation here. I would like to suggest that you, somehow it's blended better. Whether you have to curve our kind of logo and sign thing in such a way that it blends more naturally. And I'm not sure about this red color. I think that's distracting that you presented. I understand things can change here, but something that's a little more natural. If we go to, I do love all that evergreen, the picture there. It's just with the colors and everything blending together here, and then we're going to put some art there. It's just, I think we're trying to do a little too much. We do want the safety. There's no doubt about it. Too many people crossing El Camino at every different angle here. So I do think you're kind of headed in the right direction here, but we're just getting a lot of pieces thrown together, and it's not flowing in such a way. Lights have been mentioned here, and I think as a city, we're very interested in how that can be dramatic for our city. And you've got other little elements you've shown here that this precedence page, interesting. And I think those are dramatic in such a way, maybe we can, I don't know. I don't think we're there yet. We're heading in the right direction. But to me, again, we have to be a little more consistent in what we do so we're not looking cluttered. Because the drama is in the nature you've presented here, the investment of actually putting in drainage that works, dealing with the wind, dealing with the light and everything like that. So I'd like to, encourage more of a flow there. On the budget here too, what I don't see is any sort of timing estimates here. Demolition and removal, what kind of time would that take? People are very excited about this. We are. Other cities are very excited about us doing this too. So it's helpful to us to know what kind of timing this would be. You're dealing with Caltrans and a whole bunch of different aspects here, and we all know prices are affected by timing.
Yeah, so it depends on how much you build and to what complexity we build regarding your schedule. The ideal time to do the construction would be starting in April and have it run through the summer. So total construction, if you did the whole length, might take several months. There's going to be probably 2 to 3 weeks of demo, maybe a month of demo. You're going to have a month of bending the soil, adjusting some of the signage, getting that site regraded, get that taken care of. Then you're going to have a month probably coming back in and putting your infrastructure in. So you're going to have to redo your irrigation. That's going to take some time. checking the electrical, getting that, so assume another month. I think realistically, it's probably about a 5-month process from first shovel to final shovel. And then once again, it depends on how complex it is and how much you do. It's also, just in terms of the cost, it's always more cost effective to do it all at once than to phase it. Because you have the contractor's costs of mobilization, that's part of that.
Okay, so again, a presentation like that, we kind of need to know that when we are shown a budget or a bid, it's helpful for us to see that. And then too, I think it was always, or kind of suggested that this would be done in phases so that you obviously, we've discussed, have to remove the trees, you have to do the rehabilitation and dig up and see what's under there and all of that. So is that part of like the 5-month process here? I think that's.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
Again, could be very, very exciting here. And what is there a contingency built in? Because.
Yes, the contingency is shown on the cost estimate, and it's
Okay.
30%. It is standard, it's, generous, but it's a standard that we like to put in because there's unknown conditions below the soil there, roadway.
Okay, so as to the finality for me here, again, I wouldn't stick to the structured sign unless you're able to modify that in such a way, and then the colors. I think that takes away from the flow here. I know you're very excited about this, and
We're flexible.
and I would wonder too, given the rain situation, atmospheric rivers here, how something like that that's flowing in such a way would affect the flow of the water coming our way, which normally is. It looks very, things can go through it. So I wouldn't suspect any issues there, but just so we're aware as we progress here. We don't like surprises. We get too many surprises. We don't want any surprises. So I'm trying to anticipate certain things here. We've been surprised in the past, i.e. sound barriers in our new rec center, which didn't come till the very end. So again, I hope you're noting here, as was noted by my colleague, what kind of sound, if something like this goes up, all of that. So I'm not sure we're there yet, but we're heading in the right direction. So I'd like to see some differing colors as to this here, and I'm not liking our monument as presented in such a way. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Just regarding the color, we were trying to match the color of the monument, so it was cohesive.
And I don't think you have to. Again,
Okay, great.
you can do better on the monument even. We're trying to do something that's dramatic here. Yeah, we can use this on banners and things like that. But let's try to be artistic in how we present this. So it's, I think, more soft in the presentation. I don't think you need to, it's mine. See if my colleagues think here, but I think we'll be more dramatic if we can try to get away from that and show something even better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll come back. Mr. Vice Mayor first. All right, real quick.
Councilwoman, do you mean, like, I wasn't on council yet, but there was a lot of discussion on the color of the monument sign, but are you thinking that the new pieces could be any color, anything, free them from trying to match that color?
Yeah,
Where are you?
We can use this on banners and stuff, which we already do. But if we're showing a monument, previously, one that was removed, look, nothing like this. We can use this diagram and stuff in other ways here, but we're trying to present something that's artistic and dramatic here. So I don't think we should be limited in either the color or the design that's here, because it's looking just slap it together and match it up here. So I would be fine with showing a better monument in some way that's really well lit there and then would blend into what you're trying to do down the center divide.
All right, so let me just kind of keep this in order here. Mr. Vice Mayor first, and then we'll take some public comment. We'll come back for some final comment, and I have some thoughts here that I can share with all of you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
So to my colleague, I agree. I was trying to connect the vision of our first meeting, the concept, looking at the precedents, and then just seeing how it all flows together, and then seeing a drawing where some of the elements are not a part of the final drawing that we see tonight. And so, yeah, I do agree with my colleague that looking at the monument, that it could incorporate the helix look at the bottom and kind of straighten up probably with a curve, but with the same design, but really just saying, hey, yeah, we're not limited. What can we do with every aspect of this that goes beyond where we are today? And I think that's what we said in the very beginning, that we want this to be something that it transcends where we are today. That it's not something of today, that we're thinking about the future and trying to be aspirational as far as the art, the connection to moving the city forward, being a city of festivals, things like that. And I think having something of not looking at it as a past, but it just seems stationary in time as far as not being creative enough. And so I think being a little bit more creative is important. That's just my comment on that. But as far as, I think for me, my concern, or not necessarily a concern, my question is more regarding to the contingency. You mentioned a few things. You mentioned your company standard is 30% because it's safe. What is the industry standard in situations like this?
30%.
Okay, I've seen it lower, and it just seems extremely high. So and it could be because of what we're doing. If it's the streets, I asked that question before. I think it was 20%, and then so it goes up, goes down, I guess, and that's fine. But my question would be, what practices do you employ to ensure that we minimize unexpected cost increases, such as surveys you mentioned, historical data, destructive testing, things like that? What processes will you employ to make sure that those contingencies stay as low and as minimal as possible?
Yeah, so the first thing I mentioned was that we actually went out into the medians and dug up 4 different locations to try and get an understanding of what was below the surface, how deep those curves were. So that's the first thing, and that process is called potholing. And what we could do is incorporate into the construction documents that we require the contractor to pothole maybe at every median. So basically what you're doing is you're digging a hole, go down 2 feet, and you see what's there. Because a lot of times, we're picking up the utilities, but the ground penetrating radar isn't picking up, is there a 3-foot extra portion of asphalt that extends into the median. So that's where, potholing is a very standard practice that could be incorporated into this project so that you have a much better idea of what's existing.
And that's what I'm just trying to get a better idea.
Yeah.
And then maybe we could make sure that some of those extra costs can be incorporated and being a little bit more creative and
Exactly.
courageous in our design.
And just to kind of make sure we understand, so you're not married to, and that's not the best word, or the existing monuments out there, that there's flexibility in those, and that's what aesthetically you would like those monuments and what new art element that we incorporate to be of the same form, same character, same materiality. And so, because that, yeah, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, looking at the 3, I think it was the metals, I think there was a stainless steel. And so if, say, for example, you came up with a stainless steel that kind of was flattened and twisted and came into that same design,
Okay.
that's something that's different. and it's the same, but it's different. And so I think it's unique and different enough that would kind of flow with what we have here. And I think that's what we're asking for, not necessarily saying, hey, go ahead and change the monument, and then we have two different, standards. I think we're saying, keep it, but play with it, be creative, be imaginative, and utilizing some of the same elements that we've said we want to see here.
Okay.
Let me try this. I'll promise I'll go back to those council members who wish to provide more comments. First of all, you chose this to be on your cover page. There's a reason for that.
Yes.
Because someone believes that this is the most eye-pleasing part of the design. That's why you chose it to be in the cover sheet. I'm under that imagination that to be the case, because I were the one who put a design package together and put something on the front page. That tends to be the one that I satisfy the most. Otherwise, why would you put something you don't like at the first page, right? So that's, to me, obviously, somebody likes this and thinks this is something that they could be proud of. Now, to the point of monuments, I tend to look at monument as a way to brand our city, as our image. And in order for a branding effort to be successful, it needs to be consistent. It's whenever you see something, oh, this is Millbrae, this is how Millbrae looks like. You walk by it and you don't even pay attention to the whole thing and all the text and all the wording. You see the color, you see the shape, you see what it appears to look like. You kind of already have a sense, I'm home. Because you see this throughout the city. So branding requires consistency. So to that point, I think there is a discussion to be had as far as how these monuments needs to look like. If we had already invested in monuments elsewhere in the city, we need to look long and hard as to how to make sure that our branding as the Millbrae brand needs to be projected and consistently throughout to all the visitors who comes to the city. They need to feel like this city is well thought out and well designed and it's all cohesive. That's what I'm trying to get at, number one. Number two, I like the uplight and some of those things because it helps the focus, and it certainly show the vertical aspects of some of those elements, which is important. The tree wrapping, those are beautiful, especially during the holidays. Those are extremely well thought out. I like how the tree have wraps with the lights, and certainly the uplights are good as well. Obviously, LEDs, energy saving, the hallmarks of all of that, that's important. Now, monolith and signage, that's what I'm talking about. Consistency. Right? You have a certain color scheme, you have a certain text, you have a certain, it's just the look and feel. It's almost like a GUI design for a software engineer, which I used to be one of them 20-some years ago. You need to create that consistency and that same look and feel so that people know that this is all cohesive. So that's, to me, it's important. We're not going to get too much deeper into all the designs of, whether it's curve or how close the curves are, because, all of this is subjective discussion, and if you talk to 5 council members, you're going to get 15 answers. What I will say is this, and we need to discuss what tonight's action is about, is that we need to come back with a more well-defined directions and proposal. I happen to be in the business of construction for a long time. And I prepare estimates and build out Excel spreadsheets such as this for approval by a bank and those construction review companies. If I give them an estimate that has a 30% contingency, they'll probably throw it back at me. So I like to see the contingency no more than 10%. And to that end, in order to do so, we need a more well-designed, scoped out plan so that we can come back and say, you know what, we've studied all of this, we did all of that, we have some direction here, we have some decisions here, and given these decisions, we can have a more well-defined scope of work and therefore more well-defined estimate. So that would be helpful. I think we want to be as accurate as possible before we begin. So that's, from a management perspective, I think that's an important aspect that we need to achieve. Now, to that end, I know, like I said a moment ago, you come to the council meeting with 5 council members, you're going to have 15 ideas. We need to think about this, but it might be helpful that we form some sort of an ad hoc committee so that 2 council members work with you and try to get this all offline, solidified, and bring it back to the full council for approval. So that's just the idea that I'm going to throw out there for the moment. While we take public comment, I have 1 or 2 more. Ms. Cahalan, you have 1? And then Ms. Schneider, you have another? Okay, Ms. Cahalan first, and then Ms. Schneider. Be real brief, because I want to take some public comment and come back. I promise we'll have more time. Oh, you want to address my comment first? Okay, I'll let you do that first, and then Ms. Cahalan after.
So we actually had, I've probably got 50 different sketches
Right.
of options, and I'm happy to share those with you, what we've explored. And
We only have until 11 o'clock.
right, exactly. I can email them to you. We did have an option that actually was pretty much the same as a sign, just a simple piece of rectangle that went up and down and would undulate in height. You know, it's identical to that monument. You know, it looked like it was grown out of there. The reason we didn't do that is because it looked too much the same. That it didn't have enough character to it, that it was, and it was also going to be much more complicated to build. You have a rectangle like that, it gets, you know, how do you bend that steel to make it move like that? And then it also has a flat surface, which once again can be tagged. So we're really trying to find things that wouldn't get tagged. A solid material, you've got the wind loading issues, so that starts to get really into a major structural part of this design, which we will have a structural engineer work with us. And then regarding the cost estimates, it was actually all done, this is drawn in AutoCAD already. And so all the.
This is drawn, I'm sorry, one more time?
We drew these, this is, you see a hand sketch right there?
Okay.
That was a process drawing. This has actually been drawn in AutoCAD, and all the cost estimates are taken through on a computer, on AutoCAD, which is a standard drafting. So the numbers that you see there are very, you know, they're exact. And so the numbers that we're putting in there, and we did that because we didn't want to come to you and say, well, we think it's maybe 10,000 square feet, and it's actually 15,000. So that is, those numbers are, what we've got in there is precise. They will obviously switch, they'll go up and down a few percentage points, but not dramatic. So what you're seeing has been through a lot of analysis and detailed study.
Yeah, so I guess to that point, what I was trying to get at a moment ago, first of all, let me just address the monument. If you look at the monuments here and some of the signage comparison, I think there's a page where you have all of that together.
Yeah.
There's this big M on the top, and then there's a quarter sun on the bottom.
Right.
This is sort of, to me, and the coloring and the text, you know, whatever that text is, to me, there's a standard to that. I mean, there is a cohesive standard in terms of how to present Millbrae. When someone comes in and look at a sign or a flag or a wayfinder, there's a certain consistency in terms of color scheme, the text we use, and the logo we chose to use. So I think this is the value that Millbrae brings to everybody who looks at this and says, oh, I recognize this is Millbrae because that's how it looks like. So that level of consistency and that branding is important. If we want people to look at this and say, yeah, this is all well thought out, all cohesive, this is Millbrae, right? So I think there's an element to that need to be considered. Now, to your point about accuracy on the estimate, what I like to see is if we go to the direction, and we can discuss this, have some sort of an ad hoc subcommittee that will help converge the design to the point where you can come back with almost like a schematic design as to what we're going to be able to see, and then you can get a much more accurate estimate whereby you can have a much more comfort level to have a more precise contingency, a more condensed contingency, no more than 10%. Because for a construction project, it's important that we have an accurate bid. And to me, 30% is very high as far as contingency go. So I think there's a goal that we need to meet, and I would highly recommend that we find ways to meet that goal, no more than 10% contingency. So, Ms. Cahalan, and then Ms. Schneider.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, just one last question. Yeah, so just, will your vision be then that whatever element we put in there as a barrier really matches the existing signage system that you have? Or is the vision that it either matches it, so it's a very consistent form, material, it's rectilinear, maybe incorporates that M and sun in some places, or you feel like it should be in contrast, so very different? Or one last, and sorry if I'm giving you too many options, is that you take it and you find like a middle ground. Because I agree with you. You've got this whole system set up in the city. You've got this identity. You drive up and down streets.
Identity, that's the word.
Okay, so you've got this consistent identity. And do you think that the monument, its wave, whatever elements we put in there for the barrier should be entirely consistent, or can they be in contrast? And that's something you can think about.
Yeah, I want to think about that one a little bit. But when you mention the word identity, there's absolutely a value to having an identity, and that's part of the branding.
That's what we're after.
Right, so, okay, Ms. Cahalan and then Ms. Schneider.
So I want to speak to two items. One, the monument, and two, the colors. Hearing my colleagues speak up here, I do think on either end, that initial monument that says Millbrae, maybe instead it says welcome to Millbrae. I think we can play with that. And I think we stay consistent with our branding and these monuments. And I think that tall linear Millbrae sign goes well in a lot of places. But I think if we have an opportunity here, we can be more creative with that initial monument coming in on either end. And our colors are the red and then kind of shades of beige and tan, which really go into that natural elements as well. So I don't know if it's something that's stone with the red on it, maintaining the Millbrae, using the sun theme, maybe the sun theme more so than an M. But I think we could get creative and kind of bring together those natural elements with something, like the metal together, and weave those natural and not industrial, but I don't know what the right terms are, together. And I kind of like having a color that pops. I like having the natural element, but then something that has a little bit of a pop and a little bit of a shine to it, whether it's the red or something else. But I kind of like the pop.
Ms. Schneider?
So it was when Tina took a break on council's 2014, when the city spent a couple $100,000 on placemaking, and that's where that motif came through. And there were lovers and haters of it. But that's the history, the reflection of the sun, the colors that were a new color for Millbrae on that. I didn't know how far Councilwoman Pappen was taking on colors, but the overpass has green. So I didn't know if you were just talking shades of red. I like your drawings. I actually am fond of cranberries and maroons, as opposed to a bright red on that, if we're talking about colors. But we do have this other green if you're trying to open up things, and green to me are organic. Green is soothing, green is calming, red is energizing in those colors. The mayor talked about lighting. I didn't talk much about lighting, but if there is LED lighting, and looking at some of your art sculptures where they probably change their colors the way Christmas trees can now, that is an option if we went to LED lighting, which means for Lunar New Year, we can go red. For St. Patrick's Day, we can go green. There might be some fun there with the lighting on that. In terms of the cost contingencies, I'm hearing what people are saying. Maybe we can come back to us with a little bit more on there. I have a question for Mr. Batista, who's hiding back there. With all the work we're going through, are we actually leaving the existing curbs and just digging around? Because we know that there's asphalt. We know that that's why a lot of the trees didn't thrive. They had no place to go. But are we taking down the curbs on the median strips? If so, and because I know you have a really good relationship with Caltrans, could we try to recover a little bit more space given that we have 14-foot wide lanes? I know that's a big ask, but this is a big project.
So right now, the existing curbs are going to stay.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Okay. I heard you on the rocks. I hate seeing those plastic or those fake bricks at all of the areas because they're always full of cigarette butts. So hopefully whatever we'll do there will be that. But I agree with my my fellow council members, a little bit more work. Mayor, I'm not overly fond of a council of two working through this and then giving us back something that feels like a done deal. I'd rather the five of us work together on this. If it takes a little bit of time, we're spending a lot of money. Let's take a little bit more time and use the creativity of all five of us. And having you come back, the iteration is coming. I'm a little confused about taking this very rectangular shape and making Millbrae look like that, given that I'm a curve and concerned about too much linear. That said, I think our BART station went way too far in trying to reflect the wings of an airplane. So some cross in there.
All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I see some couple hand raises for almost an hour now. I want to make sure we get to these public comments first, and then we can, I promise, we'll come back with the council for more discussion. Elaine.
You would
Please.
like to call for public comment?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
The first speaker is Quig, and if you could please accept the unmute and state your full name for the record, please. Quig? I'll go ahead and go to the second speaker and come back to Quig. So the second speaker is Luis Valdez. Please accept the unmute, please.
Hi, this is Louise Velasquez. Greetings to all. I think it's laudable that we're trying to do something unique for Millbrae. I think the expense of having the metal all along this very, very, very long stretch is going to be very expensive, and would recommend concentrating on the entrances to the city from both sides to do something really beautiful and unique. And then instead of using metal as a barrier, since I drove all the way from Palo Alto to Millbrae on El Camino, in Stanford, right, where there's like Stanford and the high school and a lot of places where they wanted to prevent people from crossing the street, they used manzanita, which is a California native, a cultivar that is about 4 feet high and wide, and looks like there's no way you could walk through it or climb over it in any kind of easy way. And you might consider using something and have Millbrae be groundbreaking in using native plantings like that are beneficial to pollinators as well as people and are beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so the second speaker is Quig. So if you could please accept the unmute and state your full name for the record. So you should be able to see pop-up that asks you to unmute. And if you could please accept the unmute and you could start speaking. Quig. I could see that you raised your hand, but you're not accepting the unmute. If you could press the mic button and that should allow you to speak.
All right, could we work with her a little bit, just if, when she's ready, or be able to overcome those technical difficulties, then we can give her that 3 minutes?
Oh, there it is.
Oh, there she is, okay.
No, I did not want to speak. I touched the button by mistake.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you anyway. All right, so we're closing public comment, unless we have more. Okay, so bring it back to the council. Ms. Pappen first.
Yeah, I really, look, the signage that we have, it was for signage purposes. I don't think this was for the transformational action we're trying to take now with El Camino here. So I don't think you should be limited as to that. It was purely signage. And so we use it, how to get to the library, how to do whatever here. The colors, very limiting. It also is something that doesn't maintain over time. So I think you should be open to really making a statement here, as you've tried to do with the center divide here. What I didn't see was a fluid mix between the foliage or whatever we're going to do there and this type of design. So I think we've emphasized clearly, we want to see drama when it's at night or during the holidays and things like that. So I don't see this all happening here. And I hope this council doesn't limit themselves to what was originally supposed to be just wayfinding for the city. And we've demolished our entryway to a sign thing. So what we are left with is a neon sign that says Millbrae and nothing on Millbrae Avenue as you enter the city. So I think this is an opportunity for us to be really transformative and in such a way. So I understand what the mayor's saying here, but I think we need to define ourselves as something very, very special. And again, I hope you don't limit to the wayfinding that was developed previously. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments? Ms. Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Pappen opened up another area, looking at the second page, this page, where the two gateways are. This may be a future project. We do have the freeway exit at 101 and Millbrae Avenue, and then Rollins Road. There's not a lot of room for Rollins Road, but there is that space that we've talked about by the Chevron gas station that I would think that whatever we do on El Camino could work if we're reflective down that way. So it's something for the future, but I know Councilman Pappen has been the strongest advocate for replacing the lost monument signs into our doorway on there. So something for the future.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Any redirect would you like to comment on?
Yeah, just a little more clarification about the monuments and identity is, sorry. So do you want that monument to be there? Is there?
You mean this guy?
Yeah, exactly. Imagine, put your hand over that, it disappears. Is that what you'd prefer to see?
Bring it on that screen if you don't mind. Just, do we not want that monument up there?
Yeah, do you
That's
want
your
this,
question.
or do you, how, I'm getting the sense that whatever device, let's put it in that way, that we put in there, this device is multi-purpose. It's creating identity for you. It's also solving a very functional problem that you have, is keeping pedestrians from crossing there. And so it's identity and it's functional. And then you're interested in having probably more character than what you're seeing right now, especially, in the straight parts where it's just this ribbon going up and down. Maybe we can get a little more, you saw all the studies we have, we can definitely make it go in different angles, you can try and get it to weave around the trees, things like that. It's just all a function of cost. And so we were trying to give you something that was works within your budget, is modular, right? So if,
So perhaps let me try to see if I can find some way to converge all the things that's been
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
right? We need convergence here.
exactly,
That's what I think you're looking for.
Yeah.
And some consensus. So, and I heard Ms. Pappen saying that a moment ago, right? So what I'm trying to explain here is that, so this, I guess we need to look at the word monument more holistically,
okay,
right? So there's this thing called monument that we're calling it right now.
Yeah.
And then there's the part where, Ms. Pappen, you mentioned a moment ago, the monument was demolished, and I recognize that that was, it's also, we also call it a monument, but it's a much bigger, concrete, almost like a wall thing, that is at least 30 feet, if not longer than that, probably.
Yeah,
So,
and I was just trying to be clear here.
Right.
What you're pointing to on this diagram here.
right,
Was wayfinding and not really our, as the mayor was saying, our image or.
Identity and image?
Identity, what?
Yes.
I forget the word you used here.
Yeah.
So.
the branding.
The branding, yeah, this is, again, this was primarily established for wayfinding and just a way to identify you entered Millbrae. And I think we can be
Okay.
so much bigger in that realm. Thank you.
Okay, all right, so,
That's
but,
very helpful.
okay, so, but to that point, Ms. Pappen, do you think we need, when you refer to a monument, this is not what I'm hearing is that you don't consider this a monument.
I don't.
Yeah, you consider that more of a wayfinding sign. You're in Millbrae. But then monument also has similar purpose, although it's much more substantial piece of, I don't want to call it equipment, a substantial piece of fixture. And perhaps we could identify what monument means to you, and then so that they could come up with suggestions that meet those vision. And it doesn't take away this way, you call it wayfinding, but they call it monument,
Yeah, maybe we're getting stuck in these definitions
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
And-
right.
And
More of
so
a
this is
gateway
a
entry sign, not a monument sign.
Right.
It's really a gateway entry sign.
we're making a
not
statement with
monument
the whole
sign.
project.
Right, so if you like a monument from your perspective, which is something a lot more substantial, much bigger, much more statement of a statement,
I'm trying to say we shouldn't limit ourselves there. We're trying to present El Camino and Millbrae in such a way. When we say monument, that was as you entered off of 101, that kind of thing. So
Right, the one
I think
that-
we're getting stuck in terminology we don't need.
that's
to
exactly
do.
what I'm trying to get at, right? So from that standpoint, you're referring to monument as in the corner between Rollins and Millbrae Avenue, where it was demolished, that one, right?
Yeah, don't use the word monument. What I was trying to clarify, let's stay away from monument. We're trying to make a presentation here.
Okay.
And I was trying to be clear, and what you have up there was primarily wayfinding and, this is Millbrae. So I think we have a greater opportunity.
I got that. So to that end, first of all, we need to give that a term anyway. If you don't want to call it monument, we're going to call it something else. Whatever that term we chose to use to call that, where do you want to put it? How big do you want it? We need to give some scope so that they can come back with some solid suggestion. We'll get to that in a minute, Ms. Schneider. Can we just help to
I
Put it
took a lot
into
of
some
notes
sort
here,
of
so
a-
maybe I can help kind of bring this
guide it through?
together.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think you are getting, so this is really just kind of a gateway entry sign, not a monument sign. But what I'm hearing is, in terms of the design as we move forward, don't use that as a central theme and don't limit ourselves to
Okay.
what that is.
Fine.
So maybe even let's start with the design, and that could even be the last part of it. Because as the team said, we're also limited for space, in the narrowness of, so maybe we, like you said, you put your hand over that, and we do the imaging and start continue to evolve the landscape plan, hardscape plan, then we can come back and say, oh, this is where we can actually lay in an entry sign, a monument sign, an identification sign.
Because we need
But
a
don't
location
limit-
to that. We need a
Right.
location and roughly how big and what size it is.
Yeah.
And what that represent as well.
And don't use this theme, don't limit yourself to this theme.
Yes, I agree with that.
For this massive design project here.
Okay, Ms. Schneider.
So, thank you, Mayor. In the budget, and just for Ms. Velasquez, the full length of a 4-foot tall barrier is $741,450. So that's a price. It's a significant part of the total project, but it's there. But on the same budget, on a bid item is 3 pieces of art at $250,000. Now, because I take a lot of pictures of a lot of cities when I come into, Santa Cruz is a great example. The minute you come into Santa Cruz, there is art. That's kind of what sets you up. But because it's a coastal community, all of their art has that coastal kind of vibe on that. The art pieces could be at the gateways. So I would just throw that out there as another idea. It's in the budget. It's also something that we could go out and try to get grant funding for on that because it's a unique type project with public art in a community. Just to remind the public, if they're still watching us at this time, the Gateway art with its 9 brand new pieces of public art to Millbrae had a very much transportation theme. And we had talked at that city council to try to get away from the transportation theme. And we talked about it, that we're more than SFO. We are more than someday high-speed rail. We are our own community of a thriving city of festivals, a place that I hope someday will really truly appreciate the artist in all of us, whatever that might be, art and food, art and whatever. So I would say, from my perspective on these gateways, think something artsy. And I mean, we have Millie the red-legged frog, but I'm not saying a picture or a sculpture of a red-legged frog, but just, think about that.
Okay. I don't think we have a city mascot. I'm not going to use the. I'm not going to use the frog.
Park and Rec does.
So, any other comment? Mr. Vice Mayor, Ms. Cahalan, anything? Feel free to laugh. Okay. So, let me try to help. Did you not receive the convergence you need? And if not, where can we help you to bring in more converged direction?
I have a good understanding.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We can, it's great to be encouraged to the creativity because as I mentioned, there's probably 50 other sketches and ideas to go with this. And I think for the next presentation, we'll show those to you.
Okay.
So you get a whole range of the thought process and what we explored and, talk about the pros and cons of each and how we ended up with this particular design for you. It's very helpful to you to get direction about the identity, the difference between kind of the city's logo, the signage. Wayfinding, not that other word that starts with M. And then this whole other type of identity that you're trying to create. And that this piece that works through this median and the plantings will be part of that identity that you're trying to create for your community. Does that sound?
To me, it's okay. Yes.
Okay,
I want to
great.
make sure that you get what you need when you bring back another additions of all this.
Yeah.
That we continue to converge, continue to
Yeah,
set
absolutely.
a sharper direction.
Yeah, this is very helpful.
Okay,
I
perfect.
appreciate the time.
All right. Anyone else have any final comment for our consultant here? We're good to go. I think this is an action item. So action item is to accept this current report.
I don't think we're accepting it, will you?
I think, Mayor,
Provide
you can just say
directions.
Just receive unless there's
Receive it?
specific direction.
Okay.
And I think tonight, it's more continue to hone in on it, get this feedback. So I don't think there's really a
Vote.
vote. It's just to accept the report. I think we received good direction. I would, if I may, Mayor, talk about the funding.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So this is not going to be a general fund impact. So the funding of this, the lion's share is going to come from the Anton settlement. If you recall, the Anton settlement was 10.2 million. That was a settlement discussion on development impact fees, but we're not earmarked and tied to specific allocation of that funds like we are in development impact fees. So that's why the budget at 5 million, that's about 50%. But in that discussion, it was a lot of beautification of the city, El Camino Real beautification, that type of thing. So this was like in lieu of park fees, which is the lion's share. So the source of funding is through development. So for example, if that project doesn't materialize, we will probably not start this project or go back to the drawing board on the cost. So I just want to make sure that as we receive new development, new funds come in, they're not general fund, and they're earmarked to community improvement. So if that helps the community and the public out there of the funding source. So it's coming from new development.
Okay, real quick, Ms. Schneider.
Really quick, just as the Daily Journal reported out a week ago, Burlingame is working on their goal setting for next year. That includes their redesign of El Camino Real, and their city manager said, well, maybe we'll start on the Millbrae portion. And the Caltrans plan for that Millbrae portion includes Millbrae Avenue to Murchison. So let's just keep that in mind, that we don't get what Burlingame planned for us.
Well, no, yeah, that's right. And I think that's a good point, that we will dictate to them what we want Caltrans to develop as part of that.
That's right.
That is right.
And we have the Millbrae drawings. I was looking at those the other day.
And I will say, if we're not ready to go, we're not ready to go. And if Burlingame is, then they can start in the south part of, or wherever. But yeah, but we're working closely with them, and we've got it on our radar.
Make us look better than them.
We do look better than them.
Not yet.
All right, so timeline, when do we see you again?
Depends on your schedule.
6 weeks?
No.
8?
Definitely. Oh, no.
Sooner?
Yeah.
Oh,
Because we're eager to move this forward. And
Get closer to the mic, please.
3 weeks, maybe? Does that work?
Probably
A month? Okay.
All right, so yeah, Mr. Batista will probably work with you on that schedule, but
Okay.
see you in about a month.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next item, Mr. City Manager, I think there is item number 12.
Yes, Mr.
Adoption of a resolution approving an agreement for professional services with Nolan Tam, architect for the City Hall need assessment.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Whittam.
And staff, we are recommending continuance of this item. Continuance to date uncertain. There's some more information that we want to do some due diligence on. And so with that, we'd just like to have the council continue this indefinitely, and we'll bring it back at a later date.
Okay, I'll make a motion to continue the item.
Real quick, is there no vote on item 11?
No.
No vote.
Okay.
No votes required. I made a motion. Mr.
Second.
Vice Mayor, second. I think he.
Oh, sorry.
He seconded first. Ms. Tran.
All right. Councilmember Snyder.
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen. Councilmember Cahalan.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman.
Aye.
Mayor Fung.
Aye.
All right, item number 12 is continued indefinitely by a vote of 5-0.
Excellent. So that brings us to the council comment. Who would like to go first?
No comment.
No comment, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor? Ms. Pappen.
Thank you very much. I look forward to hopefully a future agenda item on the request for mayor at large and doing away with districts. I'd like to congratulate the Lunar New Year celebration. Wow, that was amazing. Just look at the crowd that showed up. So for everybody's hard work, greatly appreciated along those lines. Let's see here. Samaritan House is having a gala on March 15th as we approach that. In addition to, I guess are we going to schedule the rally that was mentioned earlier? There was a date that Mr. Musa.
It is to my understanding, it is a citizen organized activity that is not related to the city.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear on that. There is an election coming up next Tuesday in the front of City Hall here. There are many places where you can drop off ballots. So you can do that now until the election day at 8 p.m. I think this weekend Millbrae will have an in-person voting. Is that correct, Elaine? Starting Saturday?
March 2nd.
That's this Saturday. I think Burlingame's is open right now. So please do what you can because voter turnout is very low. is what we understand. And we like to encourage people as much as possible to vote. It is your right, and we hope you'll take advantage of that. Also, I ask that we please close in remembrance of a longtime Millbrae resident, Joan Rebataro, who passed away on February 19th, surrounded by her family. On March 1st at St. Dunstan's, they will be having a mass. So our thoughts and prayers go out to her family that was with her at her passing. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pappen. Ms. Schneider.
Okay, this one is for Councilwoman Pappen. MTC is going through a certification review, and the Federal Department of Transportation had a meeting today, so I virtually attended it. I think it would behoove the city of Millbrae to write comments about, you'll know much more about MTC, but I can see how the OBAG grant process didn't work the way accordingly on that. So I'd love to see us do a letter from the city. Their comment period ends around April 24th on that. CCAG BPAC, and this is a little bit to the mayor, we turned in our scores last night. There are 10 applicants for a couple $1 million. You must have a BPAC to be able to get these TDA funds, and yet 2 of the applicants don't have a BPAC. So there's a lot of weirdities, new word, coming out of this process. And it was clear, finally, they did add a new question. So, you know, the city of South San Francisco in the last couple of years has gotten almost $1.5 million in TDA funds compared to cities like ours in the 250,000 range or $80,000 Tacoma. But there's really a need to look at all of the bike pedestrian fundings from multiple agencies and figuring out who's actually getting the money, how is it getting, is it meeting the goals of that? And really the way each entity does a grant every year, a different grant every 2 or 3 years, it's really hard to find out where the money is going. And that's my comment to MTC, because Silicon Valley Bike Coalition told me that San Mateo County is not getting its, I guess, pro rata share of bike pedestrian funding. It goes to the more aggressive counties like Alameda, San Francisco, and the city of San Jose. So things for us to look at. Wanted to congratulate staff in the financial report today. Our grant and infrastructure funds are up 1,300%, so woohoo. And our TOT, which is still lagging, is at 54.76%. So Mr. Sung, know that we do read those, and that sounds like good news. Millbrae's BPAC talked about their projects for the next fiscal year and talked about the spur trail and trying to concentrate efforts on the spur trail from Helen Drive to Lomita. So that might be coming forward with them. And a Bay Area water supply. They've kept their staffing the same for many, many years, but in the policy committee meeting last week, with the workload to prepare for the next drought and how long most staff is working at 150% of time, that there may be an increase to bring on some additional staff at the Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation Agency. So I think that's my updates.
Mayor, I would point a clarification on the 54% on the, I just don't want anybody to think. So that's mid-year. So I don't want anybody to interpret it as we're at 54% of normal. It's 8% of the year, mid-year.
Sorry.
So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had hoped that you would do it under your comments because it shows that our hotels are actually doing well. And I'm sorry, I left one other thing. In this current TDA, Article 3, transportation funding, San Bruno, Millbrae did not apply. San Bruno did apply. They're basing theirs, they have a Safe Routes to School plan, and this grant will cover 5 schools, including Cappuccino High School. And in the grant, they plan on painting the curb of Magnolia and Millwood red, adding yellow sidewalks and a more, possibly a curb extender. And I called them on this last month when they gave their presentation and said, have you talked to staff? And then I've communicated with you guys that San Bruno is doing a plan on our land. and their grant did not change. So that, I want everything. I want San Bruno to get the funding, but it is our land, and it shows you how confused people are. They hear Cappuccino, they say it's San Bruno, and all the roads leading to it are San Bruno, and it's not, it's Millbrae. So we need to, I want to love San Bruno, but CCAG staff did not correct them on this, and I had to write to them, say, how can I properly grant something when they don't have an easement, they don't have the documentation you need to get the grant? So there's some problems in grant land, and as our CCAG rep, you should be aware of that.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Cahalan.
Thank you. I'd also like to congratulate everyone that worked on the Lunar New Year Festival. I was very disappointed to miss it out of town on a family event, but all the work to move it, to work around the storms and the weather and still have a beautiful, well-attended and a fantastic celebration. So congratulations to all for making that happen. The Park and Rec Commission this month, we had a good discussion about pickleball with both local residents there as well as pickleball players, but folks really seemed amenable to working together and making something come together that works for everybody. So excited to see the updates in the city manager's report tonight, and hoping to hear it next month's Park and Rec. I'm sure we'll have folks come and let us know if it's working well or not. But it's nice to see a very collaborative process of everyone working together and trying things out. As I think we're getting ready for goal setting soon, I know there's a lot of discussions this year about budget. I'd like to propose to the council to maybe bring to another meeting, if as we go into goal setting, maybe looking at not just the upcoming budget, but a 3 to 5 year forecast of what we think that budget will be as we look at goal setting, not just for the first year, but maybe thinking about those projects that could be multi-year projects and really understanding where we are for the next 3 to 5 years, especially with all the growth that's happening in the next 3 to 5 years. I am participating in the CERT trainings. Those are going really well. We have a full class and there has been very little attrition, so that's great. We're gonna have a lot of new CERT members. Rotary has their Lunar New Year celebration this Thursday night, their dinner, and the MEF Gala, the Millbrae Education Foundation Gala, is March 23rd, so hopefully we'll have a full attendance. It is a casino theme this year, so hope folks come out and support the kids. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. PCE has voted this past week to dedicate $26 million through March 30th of 2027 in working with Franklin Energy to implement turnkey electrification installation service for single-family home throughout San Mateo County. This turnkey installation will include 3 major components: income-qualified, no-cost electrifications for expansions and existing home upgrade. So that's a wonderful program. There's also the market rate cost share electrification, which it's offered to homeowners who are not income qualified, as they would call it, a market rate customer for no-cost services. So that's also extremely beneficial to help electrify your home and to get to the point where we can reduce greenhouse gas emission and reduce the reliance on natural gas. So, and then also the emergency water heater replacement, where they're going to, if you have a gas water heater burn out, they'll give you a temporary loaner and then eventually help you install a new electric heat pump water heater. So all these things are just helping homeowners to get to electrification as quickly as possible and as lower cost as possible. So I'm very proud of PC dedicating all $26 million to this program. So we should all try to take advantage of that. I'm also thankful for the volunteer who worked hard to make the Lunar New Year Festival so successful. The
change of the day was a good call, and I want to thank the staff for working with MCC to putting this major festival for our city together. It was so well attended. You know, I heard, what is it, about 10,000 people? So that's almost half of our city came out. Obviously, there's a lot of neighbors as well. But everybody had fun, and it puts Millbrae on the map, and all the businesses locally have benefited from this effort, so I'm thankful for that. I also want to thank my colleagues in San Mateo County for their trust and confidence to reappoint me to SMC HOT Board, the Housing Endowment and Regional Trust. So I have another opportunity for another 3 years to look forward to continue working to bring deep, affordable, and supportive housing opportunities to the most vulnerable part of our community throughout San Mateo County. So with that said, we're closing in memory of Joan Robataro. Okay. And we adjourn the meeting tonight at 10:24 p.m. Thank you, everybody. Good night.